Okay, everyone, we're going to get started. In accordance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, be advised that a notice of this meeting was made by posting on the bulletin board in Town Hall and forwarding to the officially designated newspapers that this meeting would take place at Town Hall at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. Meeting details and the draft agenda were also posted on our Township website. Please stand to salute the flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Here.
Ms. Prukas? Here. Deputy Mayor Sacamandi?
Here.
Mr. Stoller?
Present.
Mayor Romano?
Here. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, next we have a statement that we're going to read this evening. Whereas the Township of Millburn is steadfastly committed to upholding the principles of democracy, free speech, and peaceful political engagement, and whereas political violence stands as an affront of the values of our community, our state, and our nation, threatening the very foundation of our democratic system and tearing apart the fabric of our society.
And whereas the recent incident of senseless violence in the form of an attempted assassination of a former president of the United States has shocked and saddened Americans across the nation, serving as a stark reminder of the very real threats all current and former elected officials and their families face in stepping up to serve their communities. And whereas elected leaders on all sides of the political spectrum and at all levels of government have loudly and clearly denounced the political violence that led to the death of an innocent civilian and shaken the core of our democracy.
And whereas it is the duty of the community and its leaders to stand united against all forms of violence and to promote a culture of respect and peaceful dialogue, treating everyone with dignity and tolerance. Now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Millburn in the County of Essex, State of New Jersey, do hereby proclaim
condemnation of political violence. The Millburn Township Committee unequivocally condemns all forms of political violence, regardless of the perpetrator or the target. Support for victims. The Millburn Township Committee expresses its deepest sympathies to the family of the civilian that lost his life and all those affected.
Commitment to peaceful political engagement. The Millburn Township Committee reaffirms its commitment to promoting and upholding peaceful political engagement, encouraging all residents to participate in the democratic process with civility and respect for different viewpoints. Call to action. The Township Committee calls upon local, state, and national leaders, as well as community organizations and citizens, to join in condemning political violence and to work together to foster a safe and respectful environment for political discourse.
Thank you. May I have a motion to approve the June 18th, 2024 regular Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? May I have a motion to approve the June 18th, 2024 special Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now we have an appointment to the Fire Department. Chief Echeverria?
Okay. Good evening, Mayor Romano, Deputy Mayor Sacamandi, Township Committee members, Alex, Timothy, colleagues, friends, and family. On behalf of all the members of the Millburn Fire Department, I want to express my sincerest thank you to the Township Committee and the community. It is my great honor and pleasure to be able to introduce the candidate for appointment tonight. At this time, probationary firefighter Jonathan Feinberg, please come on. Jonathan Feinberg is being hired for the probationary firefighter position. Jonathan was raised in New Providence and moved in with his father in Roxbury, New Jersey. He attended Roxbury High School, graduating in June 2010. Jonathan's journey continued after high school as he embarked on a new chapter in the United States Navy. His dedication and leadership skills were quickly recognized, leading to his promotion to Damage Controlman, Petty Officer, 3rd Class. His service took him to the Arabian Gulf, the Mediterranean Sea in 2013, where he continued to excel in his role. In July 2017, Jonathan was hired as a patrolman for the Hopatcong Police Department and then transferred to the Morris County Sheriff's Office. He has received several recognitions for delivering a baby girl, including CPR saves and the Life Saving Award. He is still currently a member of the Mount Arlington Volunteer Fire Department as a firefighter. Jonathan's journey is not a solitary one. He is accompanied by his loving wife, Marissa, their 4 children, Aiden, Emmett, Madeline, and Esme, and their faithful dog, Nova. Their unwavering support is a testament to Jonathan's character and will undoubtedly be a source of strength in his new role.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-170, which confirms the appointment?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Prupus?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Ms. Gaddy, will you now issue the oath of office to the new appointment?
I state your name,
I, Jonathan Feinberg,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
I will support the Constitution of the United States
I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will faithfully discharge
and I will faithfully discharge
the duties of firefighter
the duties of firefighter
of the Milburn Township Fire Department
of the Milburn Township Fire Department
according to the best of my ability,
according to the best of my ability,
so help me God.
so help me God.
Congratulations. Just sign, please.
We could give everybody a quick 5 minutes in case you don't want to stay for the rest of our meeting. Okay, please provide reports on the committees that you are a liaison to. And I'm gonna begin. I don't have any reports. I just want to again applaud the 4th of July committee for a wonderful day. We just about made it through the rain at night, and they just did a fabulous job again. So, Deputy Mayor?
Sure. Planning board has not met recently. Neither has the zoning code examination subcommittee. They'll meet later this week. So the EC has met, and the EC encourages all residents to attend one of the Open Space Trust Fund information sessions held at the library from 7 to 8 p.m. on Wednesday, July 31st, Wednesday, August 21st, Tuesday, September 24th, and Wednesday, October 23rd. On October 5th, Milburn residents will have the opportunity to vote on the Open Space Trust Fund ballot referendum question. These information sessions are an excellent chance to learn what having an open space trust fund can do for Milburn and to get any questions you may have answered. Please visit the township's website for more information.
Committeewoman Krupas?
No.
Committeeman Stoller?
Sure. Recreation Committee, the pool had over 11,000 check-ins from Memorial Day weekend through the end of June, which is the most we've had in 15 years. This final summer concert is at Taylor Park tomorrow night, featuring Twilight Disciples, which is a dance rock cover band, which should be exciting. The Euro Park pickleball courts are going to be open tomorrow night with 40 people slated to play. Right now, there's a ribbon cutting, I guess, at 5:30 p.m. Pending the weather. And I'd also like to acknowledge that Short Hills resident Molly Reckford will represent the United States at the 2024 Paris Olympics on the women's rowing team. So big kudos to her. SID, Special Improvement District, Town Hall Plaza, right next to here, is in full swing through Labor Day. They have music, food, exciting menu, special events, also a lot of other events. Tomorrow is a cigar and fire pit night, followed by a family trivia night on Thursday. They're going to have a street chalk for kids on July 24th, a s'mores night, a kids dance party on August 8th. So if you go to exploremilburn.com to their website, you'll see all of the exciting and fun events there. Board of Education liaison, nothing going on there. Obviously, it's the summer. Haven't heard anything on the contract negotiations. Joint fields, no new updates. Emergency dispatch, nothing to report there. And the flood mitigation, we're going to be putting out a report soon for the entire community. Affordable housing, I am going to let Alex address that, but I do have a quick statement just on my personal feelings on it and the recent developments in the litigation. Our town proposed two exceptional alternatives to replace an ill-advised and clandestine agreement made by our former township council members. This previous deal promotes income-based segregation by situating 75 families on a contaminated site. In our meeting with the special master, he wholeheartedly agreed that two new sites were superior based on various factors. These new sites could be developed more quickly, would have had a significantly lesser impact on our infrastructure, including traffic, would avoid segregation, includes workforce housing, and would be more financially feasible for our town. However, there appears to have been some irregularities to me from the time the special master left Milburn after walking the sites with Frank and myself. The situation suggests improprieties to me. I believe there should be an investigation into what transpired and what happened during him leaving here in the final report. I believe our town should also hire a special counsel to understand how this deal, known as the worst fair share housing deal in New Jersey history, was imposed on our town in secrecy. Additionally, past town council members have already indicated that the process was flawed, particularly concerning why it was conducted in secrecy and details were not shared with the residents public prior to its agreement, i.e. transparency. The situation is deeply troubling. I am adamantly opposed to the dump project that violates my oath to the state of New Jersey, to the United States Constitution, and to you guys, the residents who elected me with over 65% of the vote, based on our commitment to opposing this ill-advised project, transitioning our town to nonpartisan politics, reducing crime, and much more. This is merely an expression of my profound disappointment in what I believe is a broken system where residents feel they have lost their agency. With that being said, I remain fully committed to working with Fair Share Housing to deliver affordable housing that is sensible, economical, and practical in every manner. Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't have any reports, but I would like to publicize the fact that the Milburn Short Hills Ambulance Squad is holding 2 CPR classes in August on the 3rd and the 10th Saturday morning. You can register for it on their website. It's a very nominal cost compared to those same courses offered by other agencies. And they're looking for people to sign up. They provide that as part of their charter of community education. So I would encourage you to attend.
Thank you. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, just a few brief reports. One is an update on the PSG work that is taking place at the intersection of Spring and Milburn Avenue. We do expect a few more days of that work. It is quite a large and complex project in which they are tying in all of the work that they did in the Washington section to a large gas main that runs down Milburn Avenue. But there is a sufficient detour put in place where those driving down Milburn Avenue can detour back to Milburn Avenue through Spring Street. If Spring Street is closed, Milburn Avenue will be open. I think it's been flowing pretty well. Traffic's been fairly light, and it is the summer. It's probably the best time to deal with this intersection, but just wanted to let the residents know there will be a few more days of that. The 2024 road reconstruction projects are going to get started. If some of them have already started, so just want people to keep in mind that I know, I think somebody used to tell me that summer was orange cone season. So this is there's going to be a lot of work done in town, but a lot of good work improving the infrastructure. And we just wanted to let you know that list of roadways that are being milled and paved and some curbing work done or drainage work done, depending on the state of the roadway, is all located on the township's website if you're interested. But just wanted to let people know there will be some closures throughout the town this summer. And lastly, just want to update the community that the home energy aggregation will be, some of you will probably start receiving, if not have already received, information packets about home energy aggregation, which is a program that puts an aggregation on all of the residents' energy from JCP&L from one distributor, and results in a reduction in price. You are able to opt out of this program at any time. There will be information about opting out. There's also an option to opt up if you wanted to receive green energy as opposed to just normal energy. All of that information is being sent out to residents. There's going to be an information session next week via Zoom on Monday the 22nd. And then there is a information session at the library on July 24th. So residents that are interested in that can attend those information sessions if they have questions. The Hunterdon Energy Aggregation Cooperative is the one that's running it for us and 18 other municipalities, and just wanted everybody to be aware of that.
Thank you, Mayor. Good evening. I have two brief litigation updates for the committee tonight. First is a Bear Properties update. The Bear Properties case is a case in which plaintiffs challenged the validity of an ordinance which was passed to establish the SID. The court decided some pretty significant motions last week. Plaintiff was seeking to protract litigation, sought to reopen discovery, seeking documents, and excuse me, Mr. Feld, I'm speaking, and wanted the court to order and wanted the township to participate in mediation. Typically when a government action is challenged, it's done by way of prerogative writ, and that's the way it's typically done in courts. It's typically a simple briefing schedule, a motion practice, and discovery is limited. The township filed a motion seeking the case be properly tracked as a prerogative writ and sought that the court dispose of the matter through a briefing schedule. The court denied all plaintiffs' relief and granted all the township's relief. So the case has now been placed on a prerogative writ schedule, and there is a briefing schedule by the court. So hopefully that matter will be resolved in an efficient manner. Additionally, I have a fair share housing update. So for everyone who's been following, the township thought that it had created a significant opportunity for the township. As everybody knows, this governing body is committed to its affordable housing obligations, is committed to doing it the right way for the residents, and not only the residents of the township, but also low and moderate income individuals who would be moving into this community. They want to do it the right way. So we were given the opportunity to find alternate sites, as many in the community know, and to the efforts of the governing body, its professionals, our administrator, A lot of hard work went into identifying 2 locations, and of course, our planner. A lot of locations which were far superior in the township's opinion to the 9 Main Street project. And I know Committeeman Stoller touched on some of it, but, just briefly, the 9 Main Street requires significant remediation. In addition, it's located between the DPW garage, which would remain. It's on the Morrison Essex line rail embankment, and there's a PSCNG substation which sits behind it, which isn't really very conducive to residential. In addition, it's a fully exclusionary project. It's a very active DPW site. It requires the removal of a pumping station. It requires moving of a salt dome. It requires removing the township's recycling facilities. A lot of extensive stuff. The 2 new sites that were proposed not only propose affordable housing for the township, but also something called workforce housing. The difference is affordable housing starts at 80% of the median income. Workforce housing is 80 to 120% of median income. And I see, we have our Assemblywoman here, and she's aware that the state is a big proponent of workforce housing currently. It's a great opportunity for people to live in the communities they work. The state has provided a lot of funding for that. It's something that this committee thought was a very positive thing for the township of Milburn. So I think that's great. The 2 sites proposed, one would have had 29 affordables with 14 workforce. The other one would have had 46 affordables with 21 workforce. The total affordable count would have been 75, the identical number. So at no point would there have been less affordable housing in the downtown. With the addition of the workforce housing, creating an inclusionary atmosphere, everybody on this committee at least thinks is better than having an exclusionary commitment. We did walk the site with the special master. The special master walked all 3 sites. We got some very positive feedback on the alternate sites as opposed to the DPW site. This was definitely going to be a win-win for everybody. It was going to be a win for fair share housing. It was going to be a win for the township of Milburn. It was a win for the residents. The court instructed the special master to prepare a report and making a recommendation to the court. The order provided that only the township and fair share housing provide input to the court as to which site would be locating. The special master allowed the developer who was already designated on the site, who has nothing to lose and only to gain by building on the site, to participate in the process and submit reports. And we advised the special master of the flaw in allowing them. I also advised the judge that it was against her order. The judge said that she would have allowed it had she been asked, and she was okay with it. So ultimately, the court adopted Mr. Banish's report in its entirety. Mr. Banish's report is that the 9 Main Street site is the site that the 75 units should go on. That's realistic. It's feasible. It's feasible. So the township is ordered as of the date of the order, and the order has not been entered yet, to pass the RPM redevelopment agreement within 30 days. And there should be no changes to the redevelopment agreement. In addition, the township is to negotiate and adopt a pilot agreement with RPM within 4 months. And we're to apprise the court of any changes. In addition, the court wants an updated completion schedule for the project. Doesn't want dates adjusted other than to adjust for the time in which she claims the township wasted time in not allowing the project to move forward. Again, we were highly disappointed in that outcome. We're currently reviewing all legal options, but at this point, we haven't seen the order yet, and we're waiting for the order to come. Mayor, that's my report, but I'm happy to take any questions from the committee.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Mr. Cantor?
Thank you, Mayor.
Great, thank you. So I invited Assemblywoman Begoli to come tonight to give us an update on the legislation that she is currently sponsoring. And thank you for coming.
I'm sorry, I'll stop. Good evening, everyone. I'm gonna have my chief of staff, if you haven't met her, Genesis Algaba. We prepared a little flyer for you that lets you know all the legislations that are currently before, well, actually, the first ones have passed the assembly. The other ones I've kind of been preaching a little bit since I've been coming to your council meetings.
Excuse me, you want to use the mic?
I'll use the microphone.
Thanks.
Sorry. Which way you want me to face? That way? Okay. So, this way. The 5 bills that are in bold at the top in the flyer that I'm handing out A 4527, A 4528, 4529, 4530, 4531. You see them in sequence because they were a package of bills presented before the assembly. And it was meant for home security and safety. The first bill concerns keyless locking mechanisms that burglars are now learning new ways to tap into your Wi-Fi systems and break into your digital. I haven't used the keys in years because I've always relied on my keyless entry. But that's connected. A lot of them are connected through a Wi-Fi or through a battery. So there's a bill now to restrict those mechanisms and to make sure that they cannot be tampered with. Establishes the next one, this is my bill that I'm sponsoring, which is I got from a meeting that I attended with Frank, which was to start a home security systems anti-burglary task force with the state, to see what burglaries are occurring across the state, how individuals are breaking in, and how we are going to provide more support to townships that are being where these events are continuous and reoccurring, and how we best can support your police departments, provide education to residents, and hope to mitigate through law enforcement. Sampson's bill 4529 requires the Attorney General to conduct a study tracking residential burglaries and issuing guidance to law enforcement and the public. A 4530 allows sentencing to be extended for terms for repeated convictions of stolen property, of receipt of stolen property. That also includes like somebody takes your Amazon package from your home. If there's someone that's repeatedly doing that, it could be simple theft as that, or coming and one person breaking into a home repeatedly. The next one, it limits negotiated plea agreements for the crime of burglary when a firearm is involved. So it limits negotiated plea deals. Those five bills have already passed the assembly. They were part of the package of 130 bills that we passed the last day we were in session this past June 28th. They have to get through the Senate now. So these are already in the assembly, done. We voted on them. They have to be voted out of the Senate and hopefully get to the governor's office for signature. That's the way it works. The next one is one that I've been advocating for. It's actually Shanique Spake's bill. She's a sheriff's officer in Essex County. And this one increases penalties for juveniles and adults convicted of motor vehicle theft and related crimes. That bill has not passed the assembly. So I have been asking for your support in writing and lobbying your state officials like me. So I'm already supporting this, sponsoring this, don't drown me with emails. But other officials to get them to move this bill forward. And just, wanted to let you know that I am hearing from your committee, I am hearing from your mayor, Romano, and taking opportunities when I'm invited to come out and speak with residents on the concerns that you're having as far as, I tell you when I come before you that I live on my house is the last house in Livingston. I am the very last house in Livingston. I border Short Hills and Melbourne. So whatever affects you affects me. Right? I am your neighbor, literally your neighbor. So when these incidents continue to happen, it's not just concerning because I live next door, it's concerning because it's part of my responsibility and duty to make sure that we are passing legislation that is supporting whatever is happening in our legislative district and community. If you have additional concerns, if you want to know how you can best support this legislation, I've also provided you with my contact information. I'm happy to sit down and schedule a meeting. If you have other ideas besides the ones that have been outlined here, and you think that another legislative bill needs to be proposed, I am happy to put it forward. Happy to have conversations. Please feel free to contact me. My information is there, and that's why I brought my chief tonight, so you could also get to know her. If you stop by my office, you can also reach out to her and have conversations as well. Do you want me to take questions? It's up to you. I don't know the length of the meeting.
I don't think so. I think
No?
if anyone
Okay.
wants to reach out to you, they
You
have
can
your
reach out to
contact
me
info.
directly. I'll stick around for a little bit too.
Thank
Right,
you.
thank you so much.
Thank you so much for coming.
No problem.
Thank you.
Mayor, I just want to
And
say,
I left a couple of copies here for you.
Mayor, I just want to say I have the pleasure of serving in two of Assemblywoman Magoli, and she really is just an outstanding legislator. We're lucky to have her in Milburn and Livingston, so it's always a pleasure to work with her. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next up, we have a presentation on the proposed town hall renovation project. Mr. McDonald?
Yes, we just have a brief presentation from Eli Goldstein of the Goldstein Partnership. We had done a previous public information session on the potential town hall renovation. Wanted to make sure that we had done that in front of the township committee and the township, at a committee meeting. So we've invited Eli to just do a brief presentation. This information is all located on the township's website as well, for those that may be interested in more. But I'll turn it over to Eli for that presentation.
Thank you. So I guess we'll start with the slideshow. So we're going to quickly run through some slides to give everyone an overview of the concept. And again, for anyone who wants to get into more detail, it's all can be found on the website. So first slide, please. So this is an aerial view of downtown Millburn, and you can see that, as we all know, Town Hall is facing Millburn Avenue, which is along the bottom of the photograph. And in the upper right corner of Town Hall, there's a small building that we call the Alarm Building, which is currently the home of the food pantry and used by the fire department for some storage. As part of this development plan, we're planning to demolish that building and extend the Town Hall to the north towards Essex Street. Next, please. So in order to understand the existing building, one of the firms that's part of our team used a very sophisticated laser scanner and scanned the entire inside and outside of the existing building to develop as-built drawings, since there weren't any in the town's files. Next slide, please. And then one of the people in my office who is specialist in historic preservation of buildings did an analysis of the existing building and concluded that it was built in 3 phases. The phase at the bottom, which faces Millburn Avenue, was built in the late 1800s. The 2 green wings, the upper left and right, were built in the early 1900s, and the infill in the middle of the back was put in the mid 1900s. And that's one of the reasons why, if you were to look above the ceilings of the existing building, you'd find a lot of different types of construction, because each time the building was added to, it was built a little differently. Next, please. So here's a view from the west of the existing building, and you can see poking above the roof on the far left is the hose tower from when the building was first built. That was for the fire department, because the fire department occupied the building at first. Later, the police department occupied it. Next slide, please. We'll get into some of the details of the inside in just a minute. So, as you saw, the building is about 140 years old, and it's suffering from a lot of problems. So we had a lot of objectives as part of our study. We wanted to take a holistic view of the building, try to solve all these problems in our design. We want to make it functional, adaptable, accessible, because it's required to be accessible under the Federal Americans with Disabilities Act. And then on, all the other things that we're trying to achieve here. And the very bottom, also look at the feasibility of incorporating into the building the municipal court, which is currently located across the street in the police station. Next, please. So in order to get to this point in the project, we did a lot of studies. We had the site surveyed, we met with representatives of the State Department of Environmental Protection regarding floods. We had the water company check the water pressure in the street, and so on and so on. And again, you can read all this on the website. Next, please. In the process of analyzing the existing building, we found that there were many aspects of it that were not accessible to the disabled. The restrooms, the elevator, the basement, several of the entrances, many of the doorways, almost all of the door hardware, parts of this room and parts of the dais where the committee sits. And then other things we learned as we analyzed the building, we had some portions of the exterior wall opened up so we could find out whether there's any insulation in the original building. And we found that the original building exterior walls are completely uninsulated, which explains why the energy bills in this building are very high and why it's hard to keep it comfortable in very cold and very hot weather. there's some contamination in various parts of the building from asbestos and lead. The basement has experienced some flooding. The stairs in the building are very steep, much steeper than currently permitted by code. And the HVAC systems have reached beyond the end of their useful lives and cannot provide comfortable indoor conditions. That's just a partial list. So these are the existing plans of the building, and the color coding has to do with the various functions. For example, the finance department, or the health department, or the rec department, or the engineering department. So each color represents a different department. And if you look carefully, you see that many of the colors are distributed, are not in clusters. They're distributed over various parts of the building, in some cases over multiple floors. So one of our objectives, as we met with and talked with heads of the departments, was to rearrange the groups so they're all together, so that the engineering and planning are all in the suite, and so that the rec department is all in the suite, and the finance department is all in the suite, and then to arrange the suites in some coherent manner in the plan. Next slide, please. And so these are plans, the proposed plans, and you can see that in these, the colors are tended to be clustered because of what we've done in rearranging the plan. And essentially, the lower half of each plan is the existing building, and the upper part, basically back toward Essex Street, is where we're proposing to expand the building to the north. And so, in very simple terms, what we're hoping to do, or proposing to do, is to take this room, this committee room, and take it out of the original building and move it up into the upper left-hand corner where the addition will be. So that this building is essentially all offices, and then the addition is a new, larger, and accessible, and fully outfitted with AV equipment and so on, meeting room, multi-purpose meeting room. And then the blue, the upper portion, the dark blue, would be the violations area. And that will be next to this new meeting room, so that could also be used as a courtroom. And then the color coding in the lower half of each plan would be the distribution of your existing offices, redistribution of them within the first and second floor of the building. Next slide, please. As part of this, as we discussed with each of the members of the various departments, we concluded that in this day and age, it's for security and functionality, it's better if the staff areas are secure from public, so that the public comes to a window or a counter and interfaces with the staff, but cannot just circulate wherever they want in the building, as they do now. And so in this plan, the green areas are the public circulation, and the blue areas represent where the staff will circulate. So we've got two separate circulation networks we're proposing, a public circulation network and a staff network. And they meet at the service areas, service transaction windows with the public. This will become clearer in a few minutes. Next slide, please. Now, another reason to do this is because it will allow the building to be, the building use to be controlled better. For instance, when there's a meeting like tonight. So during the day, the public will be able to get to all the areas that are shown in yellow. Next slide, please. But at night, the public area, the public access will be limited just to the lobby on the first floor, and the meeting room and the public bathroom. The second floor will be completely closed off and secure from any use, and as well as all the air conditioning systems in the second floor will be completely shut off at night to save energy. Next slide, please. So we then did a test of putting furniture in each of these spaces to make sure that all the staff members and visitors could fit. Next slide, please. And then we did a careful analysis of the square footages compared to the existing and proposed and how they're changing. And the biggest change here is whereas the existing building has only one real conference space, which is the back corner up here, we're proposing to put a number of conference rooms, both floors, so that there's more room for meetings with the public. Next. All right, so this is an aerial view of the site. The blue line represents the perimeter of the site. And you can see in the upper right corner, the dog leg off of Essex, which is all part of the edge of this property. Next slide, please. So here is a survey of the site. Again, the blue line represents the limit of the site. And you can see again the alarm building, that small rectangle to the upper right of the existing town hall. Next slide. And so this is what we're proposing to do, extending the building to the north, almost up to the limits of the property. Next slide. And then here we're indicating where the entrances will be. So on the right, there'll still be an entrance from the east parking lot, but we're adding a new entrance on the left from the west. We're keeping, actually improving the entrances from Milburn Avenue, and then we're creating a staff entrance on the north. And as you can see on the far left, based on the latest flood information, the flood elevation in this area of town increases as you go towards Essex Street. Next slide, please. So this is, again, you probably recognize this from the photograph I showed earlier. This is the west elevation of the existing building. Next slide. And this is what we're proposing as an initial design concept for the addition, where the meeting room will be in that brick-faced piece on the far left, and then there'll be a glass enclosed lobby between it and the existing building. Next. And this, a little more in 3 dimensions, gives you a sense of what that would look like. And so we're keeping the facade and the tower from the existing building after talking to the Historic Preservation Commission about the historic aspects of the existing building. And we then would match the brick in the new park. Next thing, please. So these are 3-dimensional cutaway views of a study model we've built to show how the spaces will be distributed. And essentially, we're proposing to put a lobby in between the existing building in the upper drawing. The existing building's on the far left, and the addition is on the right. The lower view is flipped. The existing building is on the right. The basement, which you can see at the bottom of both of these, would be abandoned because of the flooding issue. Right now, it's being used for storage, and that's been a great risk, and there's been some water damage to some of the records that have been stored down there. Next. As some of you may be aware, the Environmental Commission is very strong in favor of building sustainability. And I'm proud to say that our firm was the architect for the Maplewood Police Court building right up the street, which was the first LEED certified public building in the state of New Jersey. So under township ordinance in Milburn, we're required to make this project meet LEED Silver. And so as part of our design so far, we had to figure out what credits we would pursue as part of the design process in order to achieve LEED Silver. And this is what we call the LEED scorecard, which indicates which credits we're going to pursue. Next slide, please. And then we had the project estimated by a construction cost estimator about a year ago. And the estimate at that time for the building construction was a little over $12 million, including the environmental remediation that would be required in the building. Next slide, please. And so then we laid out some major steps that we had suggested the Township Committee needed to take in order to move this forward. And then hopefully soon they will start considering those steps. Next slide. I don't know, we're not taking questions. From the committee, yes.
Does any member of the Township Committee have any questions for Mr. Goldstein? Seeing none.
Okay, we're going to show a short video, if that's okay. So, having created the model for this design with our computers, it's very easy to manipulate and to study various design options. So we're going to show you a quick walkthrough to give you a sense of what it'd be like entering and using the new building once it's expanded. So, Tim, if you would run it. So this is taken from the east parking lot. So as you enter from the east, there'll be a much nicer entrance. And on the left, as you come in, will be the building department, which will have glass fronted offices facing out toward the street. And then a long gallery, which will have the violations window at the far north. This is now the new meeting room. When you come out, you can see all the service windows. Then you can go up the stairs, the public stair. And on the second floor, there'll be another series of windows, the clerk, conference rooms, other offices. Go back down the stairs and we're to go out. This is the new entrance from the west. That's the west parking lot. And if you come in there, you'll get a sense of what it looked like from the west. And the entrance through this glass entrance. All right. So thank you for your time, and I hope you have some sense of what you're proposing. Yep. Yep.
Public comment. When invited. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern, clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and are readily available to the public. For the convenience of our community, there is a remote option. If you call in and would like to comment, please press *6 now. If you are attending by computer or electronic device, please click the raise hand button and be sure your video is on when you comment. All members of the public wishing to speak will be put into the queue to address the committee. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. You will be prompted when there is 30 seconds remaining. A reminder that this is not time for dialogue or to debate a matter, and this is a time during our business meeting for the public to offer comments. I will now open the public comment period.
Hi, my name is Eric Osserman, Short Hills, New Jersey. Two separate comments here. First, former Mayor Prupis, many view you as a swing vote on this committee, and the comments from Attorney Cantor earlier make me a little unsettled about the path forward, particularly on the dump site. And so let me remind you of a very supportive comment that you made on our behalf during the election last year that we're extremely grateful for, as are the many, many residents who voted for Frank and for Ben. And you stated, may I quote, "I am voting for Ben Stoller and Frank Sacamandi because I know that together we can prevent the slated 75-unit, 100% income segregated development on the DPW site. Approving the fair share housing settlement was the worst decision I made in office, which I deeply regret. With Ben and Frank, we can right that mistake." I want to thank you again for that comment. I urge you not to sign this agreement that the court is going to order us to sign. I sent all members of this committee an email a couple days ago with the comment, "Don't back down," quoting the very popular Tom Petty song, "I Won't Back Down." There ain't no easy way out. I won't back down. Hey, I will stand my ground. I won't back down. My comment here is, look, all of you have faced very difficult obstacles in your businesses. A merchant on Milburn Avenue, for instance, who doesn't give up because sales are less than expected the first few months of being in business. She tries new products, new strategies until she gets it right. I'm going to run out of time, but I'm going to mention a young analyst at JP Morgan who can't get the numbers to calculate properly in his spreadsheet. He doesn't give up. He keeps at it until he gets the correct calculation. Let's all learn from that because you're here to represent us residents. So we urge you to work with Council Jared Cantor to pursue new legal filings, new approaches, new appeals to stop the dump project from ever being ordered by the highest court of jurisdiction over Milburn Short Hills. If your resolve ever should weaken, you will be disenfranchising 2/3 of the town. So let's respect democracy. Don't back down. Thank you very much.
I'm Charles Bambara, 27-year resident of Short Hills. I'm wearing this shirt for a reason tonight. It's Milburn colors. I love this town. I raised my family here. I'm proud to be a Milburn resident. When a trash rag like the Gothamist demeans this town and its residents, I get damn mad and I resent it. When our New Jersey state usurps this town's right to self-government, bullies us, is not truthful, forthcoming, and fair, and violates this town's constitutional rights to self-governance, I am damn mad and I resent their actions. This fight should not be over. I fully expect this town and its township committee to push back, stand firm, and appeal this ruling all the way up to the state Supreme Court if need be. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Fran Feld, Milburn, 40-year resident. It's been a while since I've addressed you, so. I sent a letter to the Township Committee yesterday, and I'm gonna just read as much as I can squeeze in 3 minutes. I believe we are at a critical juncture in our town's David and Goliath battle against outside forces. As I have mentioned to some of you, and now to all of you with this email, I have been glad to see civility return to the TC under the direction of Annette and with the cooperation of all. It makes one proud to be a Milburn resident. I've also been cheering from the bleachers for all of you to continue to push back against the bullying that has been ongoing from the fair share housing folks, the state administration, and the developers that support its actions. This bullying, particularly with 9 Main Street, has been the mainstay of the state's urgent push to urbanize our town no matter what the cost. While we await the further building up of our township, it is the 9 Main Street project specifically that has been tainted from the very beginning. Our former attorney told the then TC members that Judge Gardner instructed him to conduct the agreement signing behind closed doors. Imagine the surprise when, on a follow-up Zoom call with township residents, Judge Gardner made it clear that he never said any such thing. Today, we are still suffering the blowback from that shameful closed-door meeting. The 9 Main Street project has been a misbegotten disaster from the beginning. A 100% income segregated building, a dump site that needs toxic waste remediation at unknown cost, a Department of Public Works that would need to be moved to a new site, also at an unknown cost, a key township artery, Main Street, that is already jammed with traffic at rush hour, et cetera. I understand that the pressure to give in to the state's demand can be unrelenting. I also understand that this could be costly to us. But since we've already said we're going to spend $7 million to help the $40 million project at the paper mill, let's think about our town, not just the paper mill. And how much money are we willing to spend to keep this project away from our DPW site? We must think of our town and its residents first before external pressures. I'm asking all of you to stand strong. Do not back down or give in. Think of our town first. There's only one Milburn Short Hills. We expect lots of apartment buildings to go up here in the next decade, but please do not make 9 Main Street one of them. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Jeffrey Feld. I am not related to Fran Feld. Wanted to make that clear. At the end of the meeting, on our second time to speak, I will address the comments that were made by the attorney about Bear Properties and what occurred in court. I'm shocked They didn't talk about my loud, spontaneous stage whisper utterance, which forced the judge to change her opinion and give us 4 months to do the pilot. I just want to focus now on the agenda. No one's ever discussed why the paper mill ordinance was removed and how it ever got on the agenda in the first place if you did not have the agreement. When we do consider the paper mill playhouse, now be in September, start looking at Judge Debevoise in a BBS case. This occurred when I was a young associate, 5th or 6th year associate of Riker Danzig, about pledging the same collateral twice or 3 times. People went to jail for that. Look at that. As to the parklets, how many parklets are we talking about were put in 2023, and how many parklets are we talking about for this year? That's resolution 178. As to the resolution that's not on the consent agenda, which is the cell tower use, that's a lease. I just have a basic question as to law. This is a real estate lease. It's not a contract of goods and services. Why in the draft that was in the agenda packet did you cite a statute that applies to goods and uses and services and not land? Land is done by ordinances, like the local land and buildings law. That's a discussion I've had with municipal attorneys for 4 years. It's sort of the reason why we're coming back to the same things. Who watches the quality and the work product of our municipal attorney? That's the issue we have. Later, it'll be the audit. You're going to approve it. And one of the issues we have in the state, your only requirement is to say like the recommendations and findings. What I've been always saying, the real hidden meat of the audit is the footnotes. You can go watch The Good Wife with Nathan Lane. The secrets are buried in the audit. Yesterday, a major opinion came out of Florida regarding Trump. Most people talk about the appointment, but there is also the last 10 pages of the opinion talk about appropriations. This is one of the issues we've been having. I've been having about 22 East Willow and the paper mill. You had to say when you're doing appropriation, where you're going to use it, what you're going to use the monies for, and where the sources. In the paper mill, you never broke out how you're using like $5.2 million. I wish we have an opportunity at some point to discuss the audit because there are serious questions in there that bears on bare properties. I will speak at the end of the day.
Thank you.
It's always a pleasure.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Venkat Bala. I'm here to address the issue regarding the paper mill funding project. As many of the concerned residents have raised, I would like to ask just a few questions to our respectful mayor and the township council in terms of supporting arts and fine arts in this particular township. What do the residents get for subsidizing this $40 million project? Do we get balcony seats? Do we get discounts off the tickets? And we understand that this is a facelift and there is no incremental increase in the number of seats that have been allocated. While we are very concerned about our residents making sure that they attend the paper mill playhouse and support it as our local arts and fine arts related area, and as a concerned residents, we are asking would township residents get any subsidized values for other dance cultural programs that might be utilized in the paper mill playhouse? These are the main questions that I have, which I would expect the township council to probably analyze, discuss with the paper mill playhouse management, and provide a reply to us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Leah Cruz, Short Hills resident. I just want to concur with Eric Osserman, Charlie Bambera, and Fran Feld. I support you guys pursuing every legal remedy and every appeal possible. I believe, if memory serves me correctly, that we spent close to $8 million on the disastrous Complete Streets project, which was supposed to improve traffic flow. And I think this affordable housing issue is a cause that will have a much longer lasting impact on our community. And Ben and Frank, you were elected to really oppose this, and I know you do. And so I really urge you to continue in the fight. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Dr. Richard Riva. I've been a resident of this town since 1961, other than the 2 years where I was in the military service. I've seen the persona of this township change over the years. We were once the townies, the hillies. We were on this side of the track and now we're on that side of the track. The persona has changed, but I want to address the Millburn Playhouse issue. Since the township purchased the Paper Mill Playhouse in 2008, Paper Mill Playhouse had the sole responsibility for the maintenance of that property. The executive director of the Paper Mill Playhouse, Michael Stott, should have, in his annual report to our township business manager, Alex McDonald, which should have included a summary of such maintenance and the future maintaining of the said property. Was this ever done and how was it done? I'd like to see the plans. The next part that I had is, it's been reported that the PMP received $4.8 million in shuttered venue operator grants because of COVID. If so, did the executive director, Stotz, include this in reporting to our business administrator and the financial accounting for the distributions of the said monies? Where did it go? During this period of time, the Paper Mill Playhouse did not pay any rent to the township. The Paper Mill Playhouse, if you look at their tax reports, has liquidity. Where is the distribution of this liquidity and how has that been used? May I finally suggest that the Township Committee put forth a resolution for a November ballot, a referendum. A referendum to educate the public to the issues, thereby allowing the public, we the people of the Millburn Township, whether or not we want to fund this commitment to the Paper Mill Playhouse. I submit respectfully. I will give the report to the clerk if she so wants it.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Richard Seibert, 25-year resident. So I've lived in town 25 years. I never came to a town meeting until about 3 years ago when my wife said to me, they're gonna build a tenement on the dump. So I said, what? So my family's from Newark, so we know what tenements are. We know what tenements are. If you ever lived in Newark, you became acquainted to them. Anyway, some people don't like that word. That's what it'll become. Anyway, when I found out about it, I said, I'm gonna go to the meetings now. I want to hear about this. And I came to the meeting the night that RPM was here with their builders, friends. And I'm a man of my word. And I want you to help me keep my word. Because I turned around and I said to him, on my word, you will never build on that site. I told the RPM owners, you will never build on that site. And he said, oh, yes, we will. In October, we're going to start building there. And I said to him again, you're not building on this site. Anyway, one time before I spoke here, and I said, RPM, $1 and a dream. So he wants to pay $1 for this property, and his dream is to own the building for 30 years. He's a young guy. At the end of 30 years, he doesn't have to stick with affordable there. He can make it all luxury. So as a resident of the town here, having my family kids go to the school and grow up here, understand the whole school system, the traffic, I pretty much know every street. It's not good for the town. And it's really in your hands now. It's not in my hands anymore. We've all come out, we've spoke about it. We voted people in for it. So it's really in your hands. I don't have to name you. It's in your hands. It's your vote. It's your vote. It's your vote. I hope you do the right thing. I really do. Thank you.
Okay, Ted Kuntz, and resident of Short Hills for about 40 years. I won't be quite as forceful as the prior speaker, but I have some questions about the paper mill that I hope you guys address. And I just want to know, like, if there's been a real good financial analysis done of the proposed 7 million bond issue that we're supporting. And if it has been done, can you share that with the residents of the town? We'd like to see it. We all have an interest in this. You're curious about this $43 million plan that we have. They understand that 20 million has been pledged already. And has that been collected, or is that only a future promise? Don't know. And are there any restrictions on this pledged amount? Or can it be used for any purpose, such as emergency repairs to fix safety issues, or walls or lighting? Or is it really set aside for what I would call more the vanity side of this project, building this glass atrium and really redesigning the entire paper mill? So and has anyone of you guys seen a spec sheet of outlining the detail of the work to be done on the paper mill of this 43 million, how it's going to be spent? And how much of that budget is for safety issues, and how much is it for the vanity side of this project? And I guess you want to know, who on the town council has the financial oversight for this entire project? Alex, I guess it would be you. I don't know. And has there been any audit of the paper mill operations, to see how well they're performing? How do they know how well they've been operating? It looks like they're doing fine. I looked at the tax return the last year's, and it looks like they're making money. So it looks like it's being run fairly well. It also looks, looking at the balance sheet, they have assets of $53 million. And of that, savings and cash are almost $12 million. Investments in equity mutual funds and fixed income mutual funds are another 21 million. So it looks to me like they have 31 or 33 million of cash and marketable securities. Now, liabilities are limited at 17 million, not a ton of liabilities. A lot of it's deferred revenue. So it looks to me like the paper mill has a lot of liquidity itself. Why do they need our 7 million? And how is it in addition to the additional money they plan to raise? So I just would love to know if you guys really looked at where all this money is going, and does it really require our financing it? Looks like we have a lot of future infrastructure requirements in this town. The $12 million for the municipal building is just probably one item. There's probably all sorts of other infrastructure work that needs to be done. You guys know this better than us. So in a long range strategic plan, you will identify a lot of the future requirements. So doing this $7 million bond for this particular project seems to me a little excessive. And I'm not sure if it's really necessary to really keep the paper mill in the condition it needs to be in. Thanks.
My name is Howard Lipo. My family and I have been living here since 1977. We moved here primarily because it was a very, in terms of relationship to New York, the commute was not excessive. Also, it was a nice bucolic town. There wasn't overbuilding. It was very nice. It's been very pleasant. Now things, and we're not here all the time, but I'm a developer in New York. So the bottom line is now, we're looking at these projects, the affordable housing. Ben, I think, and council did a very good presentation on what is a plus and a minus about this. The dump site is really an incredible problem. I've been involved in remediation of sites, and I can tell you something that what I've been told is that the idea by the developer who will have, a dollar in on this project, essentially what's going to happen is you're going to tar over the existing. Well, that doesn't help because you have so much pollution that's been building up in there for 100 years that's going to come out. And to have people living on that site, it's a time bomb. But of course, the developer will not have that liability. The town will. So again, that site, I think, it has to disappear in terms of the idea of the developer building on it. The other thing that bothers me is the paper mill playhouse. We didn't move here because of the paper mill. And the paper mill is lovely. It's a wonderful institution. The question that I have is, and I have seen, some of the documentation about the paper mill, and it says that they have the liability to do restoration work. Now, the question is, what is the restoration work? And apparently from what Ted said, they seem to have the funding. Why do they need us to put up a $7 million bond? Furthermore, we don't know what they are intending to do. There's a spec book that usually comes with projects, with development projects. We haven't seen that. Now, I also don't know, do we get, financial statements? I mean, since we basically own this property, do we get financials, on 6 months or annual, whatever? The other point about it is that we have to decide, are we in the entertainment business? Are we in the restaurant business? And that's essentially, is that why we're backing this so heavily? I don't see the point of it. I think that, they have a very nice situation there. Apparently they have the funds. And to come to us when we have other projects, we have a sewer system that's archaic. You want to do this new building for this, which is another $12 million, which with no way is going to end at 12 million. It's going to be at least 20% over that. Thank you.
Hi, Diane Eglow, lifelong resident. Hodgepodge of things. Alex, I'm just wondering if the crosswalk at Ivy and Ridgewood is being scheduled, because with the kids going back to school, that's an important crosswalk in South Mountain. Everybody is still incredible that $7 million is given to the paper mill while the downtown falls apart. Spend the money, reduce the bump outs at Milburn and Main. The turning radius onto Milburn Avenue is just ridiculous. You can't make a right on Main, you can't make a left off Main. I support the town hall renovation. I think with that, Town Hall Plaza should become a permanent park. Line that entire parking lot with trees, put perky pavers there, invite people to this part of town. And then Spring Street obviously has to go back to 2 ways as it was. New topic, I hope the forester along with the Shade Tree Committee is looking and studying where they can plant trees along Milburn and Essex. Because it's like, it's a cement desert. It's ugly, it's hot, has to be fixed. This township has a proven history of spending millions to fight projects they don't like. 25 million, 25 years to stop Stop and Shop. I don't know how much you spent fighting High Center. I don't know how much we spent delaying Chatham Road. That hasn't come to being built yet. Spend whatever money and time it takes to stop 9 Main Street. Do not build on the library parking lot. That would be a disaster. The traffic on Glen is already terrible. Where would anybody park? That parking lot is used. I don't know if it's a rumor, but I heard they're closing the Walgreens at Mars Avenue. What a great place for a nice big apartment building. Fair Share would love it. Give that to them.
For $1.
Hi, Jay Morelli, Township resident. I'd like to start by thanking the TC members for their service to the community. A few kudos. My son with his wife and 2-year-old daughter stayed with us over the holiday weekend, and we were fortunate enough to get to Taylor Park for the kids' activities, and they later enjoyed the fireworks. Kudos to the 4th of July committee. Also, we had the pleasure of visiting Town Hall Plaza, enjoyed some music and some lobster rolls. Kudos to Explore and everyone involved in creating a family-friendly, fun area for the summer for dining and entertainment. We also spent some time at the pool, which looks better than ever. So kudos to the Park District. So many good things going on in Milburn. With that, I would like to switch gears and repeat a request that has been made by me and others over the years, and that is asking the Township Committee to send out a reminder to residents, especially those with minors living in or visiting their homes, to safely store their firearms. Gun violence remains the greatest cause of death for Americans under the age of 18. On June 25th of this year, the Surgeon General declared gun violence in America a public health crisis. While we are fortunate in New Jersey to have one of the lowest gun death rates in the country, no community is safe from gun violence, and the young are most at risk. Just 2 years ago, a 16-year-old high school student in Maplewood took his own life with a gun. Other towns in New Jersey have taken steps like North Caldwell, which sent this letter out to all residents reminding them of the importance of safely storing firearms. So why can't we? I'd like to acknowledge Police Chief Gilfetter for posting information on the police website and comments made earlier this year by Deputy Mayor Saccomandi at the TC meeting regarding safe storage, but there is more we can do. So I ask again, if we can send email to our residents asking them to lock their car doors, why can't we send out a reminder asking residents to safely store their firearms? Let's not wait until after a tragic event to speak up. Thank you.
Good evening, Dave Cosgrove, I'm a resident. I sent everyone an email over the weekend on 24, 178 and 180, which really were technical comments on those. So I'm gonna kind of skip those and hope those will be addressed. But I wanted to address 2678-24, which is the new application for, for a land use application. And I gave you some language that I'd like to see inserted in that. It's part of the transparency aspect. And whether people follow it or not, what happens to residents who are interested in projects is they're currently told that until the zoning board secretary or Ms. Davitt really signs off as the application being complete, that these are confidential documents and no one can see them. So then they get approved eventually at some point. And then it goes on the agenda and the residents are given 2 weeks or maybe 3 weeks to address the issue. No time at all to get their people together, to get their experts together, et cetera, et cetera. So I'd like you to put that language in there that those are. Now, I've heard before from people in the past, oh, well, it's an Oprah issue. It's not an Oprah issue. It's an issue of whether this board, who all ran on transparency at one point or another, want to make sure that residents get to see stuff. It's got nothing to do with Oprah. And that document, when that application is filed, is not confidential. There's nothing confidential on the document, and there's no reason to hide it from people. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else before we go online?
Wow, I agree with everything you said, Mr. Noble. Thank you. Everybody probably spent 3 or 4 hours writing their amazing things and doing their research. I really appreciate it. So I'm gonna not add to those comments, but I fully support everything was said tonight. I want to talk about transparency. And by the way, I live in Milburn Township. My name is Christine Best, and I forget to say that every time I come here. So tonight, I'm going to focus on a court issue that I have evidence to prove about some members of our Democratic Party in town. And unfortunately for me, these people are clearly not Democrats that love Milburn. Ms. Scoyle is a Democratic committee candidate who knowingly—
I don't think you should be calling out people by name, not our residents.
I actually think that this is—
Mr. Cantor, am I right?
Okay, you know what?
I'm just gonna defer to Mr. Cantor. If he says it's fine, then.
Well, this is actually something that was, I think, done very inappropriately, and I think it should, people in the town should know about it.
I mean, really, like, public comments not about politics or electioneering or supporting different candidates. So if
It's actually
government-related, I
about
don't know what
fraud.
comments
It's
you're
about
making.
fraud. So I'm sorry, I can't speak about it. I can't, you guys call people out all the time. I mean, we do it all the time. I'm not allowed to talk about what was done.
Excuse me, let's just,
But
let Mr.
because you were
Cantor
involved
answer.
in an ad,
No,
so you were.
No, let's let Mr. Cantor answer the question.
Why don't you state it without identifying?
All right, I'll try to do that, but I think that well, I will do, Mr. Cantor, I respect you and I will do that for you.
Thanks.
A Democratic committee candidate knowingly presented herself to the public with her running mate in the Deerfield District 12 as a deep and caring fellow neighbor who was very concerned about solving the ongoing crime challenges to help, as she calls it, our Deerfield neighborhood. She actively campaigned, declaring herself as a candidate that would solve her district's problems after she placed her now previous home in the district, I'll be nice enough to not call out the address, on the market in early April, many weeks before the election, with the intent to sell. She walked to your homes and lied to you about her immediate absence with the intent to sell and move. She tricked you into electing her electing this person, so you don't have either someone you didn't elect or nobody, depending on what the Essex County Democratic Committee decided to do with that position. I can confirm this through a screenshot of public tax and deed records that this is their house and that the best and final offers were due on 4/23/24. The person's house went under contract on May 7th, almost a month before the election. Yet that person campaigned as your trusted neighbor in Deerfield's District 12. I can confirm this through also a screenshot of public tax and deed records that best and final offers were due and were under contract a full month before the election. Her closing or sold date was listed on Zillow as June 27th, and the transfer of deed was recorded on 7/3/2024 on the property in the district. The purchase of the house that was closed or sold on 6/11 that was purchased in another district per Zillow records was very concerning. Can I have 20 more seconds and I'd argue with you? Well, you actually broke my.
I can't allow you to go
Okay.
over and not allow anybody else.
Well,
to
but
go
you
over.
actually
Thank you.
broke you actually talked in that.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Oh. Okay. Do you want, you can have a couple more seconds, Ms. Beth.
Stop the clock. Well, Ms.
Ms.
Beth,
Beth.
he says he stopped the clock, but I didn't know that he did, but we
I mean,
did it.
it's like kind of stressed me out, so. Excuse me. I mean, I have to like take people's names out and think about that. So I've also I've had quite a number of witnesses, people that I know. In fact, the person that this person bought their house from, I happen to know is a personal friend. That's how another way I actually heard about it, just randomly at a club party, okay? So you guys, one, two, and another person, were all in the room on the 521 TC meeting prior to the election where I asked if it was allowable for a potential Democratic committee member to fraudulently make statements about their intentions to represent neighborhood constituents in their district when they were knowingly leaving the district.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll finish later. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jean Pasternak, resident. I had written to each of you about the 9/11 memorial aspect of adding the survivor wording to the different plaques, and I did get a reply, and I appreciate those replies. I just wanted to restate, as Mr. Cohen had asked me to, what my request is. My family is one of those survivor families. My husband was exposed to toxins he inhaled from the burning pile after returning to downtown Manhattan to work. We were unaware of the connection between the 9/11 toxins and his unusual cancer in his 40s. Only by chance, more than 15 years later, through a conversation in the oncologist's waiting room with another survivor, did he make that connection. As a result, he was able to pursue that cause and effect and be cared for under the auspices of the World Trade Center Health Program and the Victim Compensation Fund. It was a huge help to our family. We would like to help ensure other families are made aware of what we came to know very late. Given our town's proximity to the toxic zone and the potential for others in our town to have been impacted and also unaware, we're proposing that the survivors be acknowledged and an awareness statement be made about the 9/11 survivors at the same time. The language I proposed is, this 9/11 memorial is dedicated to those Township of Millburn residents who died on the morning of September 11th, 2001, those who survived and those whose lives were changed forever on that day. Thank you for considering that request. I'll just add to everybody else's chorus, we are 100% behind you in fighting back against the 9 Main Street project. Your constituents gave you a clear mandate in November with 65% of the voters electing Ben and Frank on the Vote for Millburn platform. This project was voted upon without any prior public input. It was clear from campaigning knocking on hundreds of doors and talking to hundreds of residents, that they are overwhelmingly in favor of pursuing every possible legal remedy to stop the segregated 100% low-income housing project on a toxic site in our town. I'm confident that each of you will vote on what the town residents asked you to do. The election should get far more weight than a handful of comments from residents who disagreed and likely did not vote for that platform in Ben and Frank. The paper mill, I think enough has been said. One thing I will add, I love the idea of the referendum. The school board has similar amounts, maybe a little bit more, that they have referendums on for voters. So this to me fits in the same category. And I'd also like to add to Leah's comment that the very people that are on the board at the paper mill were also responsible, or a couple of them were responsible for Complete Streets. A former mayor, Ted Burke, and I think he was deputy mayor, Ian Mount. So that should give you some more information. And lastly, I'll address this to Mr. McDonald. I appreciate the investigation you're conducting about the private citizen criminal complaint found against me by our former mayor, Maggie Miggins. I think I'm out of time. Okay, thanks.
Good evening, everyone. Jerry Kung, Short Hills resident. I was in attendance at the court hearing where Judge Santamoro said a lot of stuff related to the area in need of redevelopment designation of the dump. My understanding is that the requirements for an area in need of redevelopment have somewhat changed due to case law. And I think last year there was a case out of West Orange with the library site. And so I think, and I haven't looked at this in a while, so apologize if this isn't totally coherent. It said that the standards are that it needs to be demonstrably, detrimental to the environment of the town to be classified as an area in need of redevelopment. And since the DPW site is an active DPW site that we actually need to, help during natural disasters, it's hard to argue that it actually has a detriment to the town. So I'm wondering if that could be an avenue to explore, revoking that area in need of redevelopment. I know she had previously said that, I know the township committee had previously revoked the area in need of redevelopment designation, and the judge said that she was going to nullify it. So is she actually able to nullify it? Was there actually an order that said she nullified it? Can we challenge that revocation? Because I think the crux of the developer agreement selling the land for $1 and not via a public auction requires that it's a valid area in need of redevelopment. And so, if state law has changed regarding whether or not it is an area in need of redevelopment, maybe that's one avenue we could look into challenging the validity of the developer agreement, which says that we need to convey the land for $1 rather than by public auction. So I'm going to move on now from the dump project. Obviously, everyone who's spoken here tonight has said much more eloquently than I have that you need to continue fighting this. I'm going to now talk about the paper mill. I just wanted to echo Dr. Riva's sentiment that there should be a bond referendum for this. Clearly, there's, many people have many thoughts about the issue. I think that probably the fairest way to resolve all of this is to just put it out for a bond referendum to let the people of the town decide. Especially as Jean said, the schools have referendums for ostensibly property that, the town, not the township committee, but the Board of Education owns. And people move to our town for the schools. I know a couple of members said that they don't move to the town for the paper mill. So it seems a little bit strange that we're giving people a say in whether or not to renovate the schools that we actually own, and not giving the people a say in renovating the paper mill, which, yes, we own the land, but people don't come to town for the paper mill. So thank you very much.
Anyone else before we go online? Thank you. Excuse me, we're still in public comment. Thank you.
Good evening, Sarah Sherman, resident. I offer my remarks with respect and civility, and I am pleased that some others are doing the same this evening. In almost 33 years in Milburn, I have sometimes opposed actions taken by the TC or the Board of Ed. That is my right as a citizen, and I exercise my right to speak. That doesn't mean I should be vilified for my views or that those who share my opinions should be called names on social media platforms. We can disagree, and that is our right. I don't agree with the decision to give the paper mill the amount of money we did, but I accept that a vote was taken. I oppose attempts to defy the judge's orders on 9 Main Street because voters didn't give the Township Committee a blank check and unlimited time to fight this battle. I'm not alone in this opinion. The 2 new elected TC members gave it their best shot, but the judge has made it clear that the township has postponed its constitutional obligation for too long. We had 4 decades to get this right, and we are still struggling. I want to address the proposed use of the side parking lot at the Milburn Library, which was offered as an alternative to 9 Main Street. In full disclosure, I am a library trustee. The library has experienced record-breaking growth in the last year in all areas: circulation, programming, reference, electronic circulation, and visitation. The children's room is ranked #1 in the Buckles network of 78 libraries. Visitation is back to pre-pandemic numbers, and through June 30th, we offered 589 programs to 12,598 participants. The parking lot at Glen and Lackawanna accommodates library patrons, commuters, and attendees at sports events in the field nearby. 98 parking spaces would be moved to construct a 5-story building with 67 units. Clearly, this site will now be of interest in future negotiations. So we have opened a door unnecessarily and proposed a change that would hinder access to one of our township's greatest assets, our public library. Bad idea. Residents are entitled to speak out and to oppose decisions the township committee may be about to take, even if some of us are alone out here. We ask for accountability and transparency. How much will non-compliance with the judge's orders cost the township? How much time will be spent on this effort? We want to know, and we are entitled to know. Thank you.
Thank you.
May 17th, 2022, there are people who supported the film project. And if you leave them, language one day.
Good evening. Please put your camera on.
On it. Yeah, we did it.
There you go.
Good evening, everybody. Tom Hillner, long-term resident. I have some questions that I want to ask about the 9 Main Street development. It seems to be universal agreement that this was a disastrous agreement and that we are kind of impaled on the horns of this agreement. And my question is this: has there been any attempt to vacate this agreement? Forget whether or not we've complied with it. I mean, for example, are there any grounds to vacate it? Has that been examined? Was it involuntary? And I'm not suggesting with a municipal body it was. Is there fraud? Is there a breach of the agreement by the fair share housing people? Is there any other ground? Are there any circumstances that we didn't know when we signed the agreement that now have come to the fore, and that might be grounds to modify or change the agreement? I haven't heard any discussion, I haven't seen any discussion about whether or not we can do anything to get out of this agreement. I am aware of the fact that a lot of money is being spent on this matter, and the township sentiment seems to be fine, and some people want to have an unlimited checkbook on this, which may also be defined depending upon the circumstances. What are the likelihoods of success? What are the chances on appeal? Could this be stayed? It's my understanding that we've been ordered to pay attorney's fees to Fair Share and to RPM. It's also my understanding that we don't have a figure on that yet, but that's going to get even higher. And I don't know what the ballpark is for that, not to mention what we've paid to defend this action. So that's a concern. There's a urging not to sign the agreement with RPM, which the court directed us to do. So what are the consequences of that? Could we, for example, be ordered to pay a certain amount of money thousands, for example, per day, that we don't sign it. Another alternative is the court deems it signed by us, whether we choose to sign it or not. There are a lot of aspects to this that are beyond the universal agreement that this is a bad idea. But we did enter into this agreement and we have to face up to that. And the thing is, what can we do about it? One thing that was just suggested was perhaps there's some illegality connected with building this. Is there some legal thing, reason why we can't do it? Something we discovered that we didn't know then, but we now know now? Or is that just a wishful thinking? So those are the questions I have, because as we go off to battle, we have to understand the full consequences of what we're doing and what the results are going to be. So in some circles, we're getting a black eye for not for opposing this. I'm not concerned about that, but I am concerned about a reasoned approach to what we're going to do to get out of this agreement that we signed voluntarily, apparently. Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
Good evening, Perry Urso, Short Hills. Mr. Hilder, that's a tough act to follow. I also agree with many previous speakers. Like many, I never attended and came forward to the TC until I was introduced to the SID, which opened my eyes. I have participated in fairness hearings, and the exception of the most recent July 10th. We are in favor of the affordable housing, and even publicly stated and suggested that perhaps the obligation could be satisfied with senior housing, which would keep many of our longtime Milburnites in the town they love. I sent an email earlier today to this body regarding the fair share housing and the 9 Main Street project. I will read as much as I can into the record. Dear fellow committee members, township committee members, I am hopeful that you all have had the opportunity and took the time to read Attorney Resident Jeffrey Feld's pleading submission, which was sent to multiple recipients on July 15th, 2024 at 6:40 a.m. I am truly concerned that this current administration has chosen not to accept the multiple offers, Mr. Feld, to assist the township in the fair share housing mess, all at no cost. Additionally, I respectfully requested that you see our attached letter, which was sent to the Honorable Judge Gardner in September of 2022. Why, you ask? Well, history matters. On January 28th of 2022, the Honorable Judge Gardner allowed the public to participate at a fairness hearing. As one of 42 participants, including Judge Gardner, attorneys, professionals, and residents, I touched on a particular concern of my prepared talking points. I took the opportunity to present my first comment and began stating that the prior township committee members have failed to afford the public an opportunity of open discussion regarding the fair share housing settlement agreement. And why? When the question was asked during TC meetings, it was told over and over again, and this information actually was found on the township website under affordable housing question and answer, question number 4, as of on January 24th, 2022. Number 4 stated, why can't the township's affordable housing litigation be discussed publicly? Answer, the township has been repeatedly told by Judge Gardner and the court-appointed special master that the settlement negotiations are confidential, yada, 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 yada. So I respectfully stated the following comments and asked the question to Judge Gardner during that meeting. Why can't the township's affordable housing litigation be discussed publicly? I further went to say, the township has repeatedly stated that they were told by you, Judge Gardner, and a court-appointed special master at the settlement negotiations are confidential. I then continued to ask.
Thank you, Ms. Urso.
Does that
Thank you, Ms.
sound like
Urso.
something that you would have told the township
Thank you, Ms.
officials
Urso.
on multiple occasions, Honorable?
Okay, excuse me, everyone, we're not finished. Good evening.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep.
My name is Marilee Reesbeck, Milburn resident for most of the last 66 years. I've already written to all of the Township Committee members about my concerns about appealing the court decision for 9 Main Street. Deputy Mayor Saccomonte responded to my email and others with a lengthy answer indicating that he has already decided to vote to appeal the judge's ruling, regardless of the cost to our community. Committeeman Stoller has also just made a statement indicating that he will want to appeal Judge Santomaro's decision no matter the cost. So let's talk about the cost. What have we spent to date on attorney fees, and what is the projected cost to appeal this decision? If we lose at the appellate level, will they be willing to continue the fight up to the state Supreme Court? How much will that cost? The township will no doubt be sued by the developer and will incur legal fees to defend itself, as well as potentially paying out a significant judgment. What's the projected cost associated with that? How about the cost of court sanctions? And what about other associated costs? We've been fortunate that the courts have not yet imposed fines and have allowed the township to retain control over our land use boards. If we do lose control over our land use boards, what decisions might be made relative to future developments in town that would be upsetting to residents? And what about other priorities that are competing for funding in the town? We've already committed $7+ million to the ill-advised paper mill bailout. The town hall desperately needs renovation, as you saw from the presentation. And of course, investments in flood mitigation are a top priority. We do not have unlimited funds for everything. And what about reputational costs? Friends, relatives, and acquaintances in other towns roll their eyes when affordable housing comes up in conversation relative to Milburn. Milburn's image has been tarnished by what is perceived as its NIMBY position. My understanding is that per the court's ruling, the township must move forward with fulfilling the terms of the agreement, even as an appeal is initiated, unless there is a stay, which I would guess is unlikely by the court, given Judge Santomaro's position. Please clarify if this is the case. Members of the Township Committee took a bold chance in trying to stop the 9 Main Street project. It was worth a shot, but we've lost. Let's move on. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Excuse me. Everyone was respectful when you spoke, so please be respectful for everyone else. Thank you. That's it? Oh, okay. No? Okay. Okay. Okay, I will now close public comment. I think we're going to start with Mr. Cantor.
Mayor, I'll reserve comments at the end. I just want to address one thing. So Mr. Hildner raised a bunch of potential defenses, and there was a lot of talk on fair share housing and what the township's response is going to be. It was definitely a matter that was discussed in closed session today. I'm just going to ask, I'm sure the committee wants to respond and some of the issues raised, but I think specific defenses and specific strategy at this point should be kept attorney-client privilege. It's not for transparency. It's things can be done ahead of time by the parties who are opposing us, and I think it's just prudent at this point to keep our strategy and whether we're going to appeal and what our potential defenses are. But I think Mr. Hildner certainly did a great job of summarizing some potential defenses that are out there, and I respect his opinion. It's just I would advise this committee that if he said something that rang a bell or that we're not unaware of a lot of things that have been said tonight, we're aware of. Thank you.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
I always go first. Why don't we let someone else go first? Maybe Mr. Stoller?
Sure, I'll go, since you defer for some reason.
Miss Best, obviously transparency and in those lights, I supported you at night for understanding that. I agree. I think that should be looked into. Jean Pasternak, 100% agree with you on 9/11. I was down there multiple times with some volunteer fire folks who were living or staying in our home in South Orange at the time. We went down multiple times. Just a tragedy, and people being affected multiple years, 10, 20, 30 years later, absolutely should be acknowledged. Fair share housing, I'll defer to Mr. Cantor. And then on the paper mill playhouse, really, everything's not burning down. I've gone through numerous exercises on it. It's all online. It's a dereliction of duty not to support the cultural icon and a paper mill playhouse, a performing arts center that underpins the vibrancy and the economic activity of downtown Millburn. They keep seats in the restaurants filled. Our demographics are changing as a town. I know a lot of people are being ginned up, but our demographics as a town are changing. People are not going out to eat as much due to that change in demographics. We need to support the paper mill. Additionally, this town has never been stronger than it is right now, economically and culturally. So I just want everyone to take a deep breath and understand that Millburn Short Hills is in great position. We have $4 million in net debt. We have debt capacity up to, I think, $260 million based on a AAA credit. So, we're all neighbors and appreciate everybody's input. Thank you.
Thank you, committee member.
Yeah, I just want to say a few things. First of all, I agreed with Mr. Moriali. I think we should send out an email blast about reminding people to lock their firearms if they have them. I also agreed with Mr. Cosgrove on I participated in some of the ordinance about redoing the forms for the planning and the zoning board, but I do agree with him that the document should be made available to the public. That could be noted on the form, as he pointed out, but giving the neighbors only 2 weeks or 3 weeks to respond for something that's been sitting in the queue for months is not right. And I think we should make that change. Oprah he mentioned something about it's not an Oprah issue. You can hide it as an Oprah issue because Oprah doesn't require you to distribute draft documents, but it doesn't mean that you can't. And I think that we should. And lastly, as I told Ms. Pasternak, I fully support her request for the 9/11 memorial. It was only by the grace of God that I was not there that day, as I was working on Wall Street at the time, and was so super fortunate to have been home that day. And I certainly extend my sympathy to anybody who suffered that tragedy or incurred some illness as a result.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Sure. Where to begin? There's so much. I really appreciate everyone that came out tonight to speak their mind and give their opinions about how the town should proceed with regards to, either continuing the fight against the dump project or, throwing in the towel. I think you all know by now, I'm not in favor of throwing in the towel. I think that we owe it to the residents of our town, we owe it to ourselves to stand up for what's right. And what the court essentially decided last week was that they, along with Fair Share and RPM, they're segregationists. They are advocating and fighting for a segregated project, an income segregated project. Why on earth would you do that when you have been given an alternative? 2 pristine pieces of land that are readily developable, that will produce the same amount of affordable housing units, and on top of it, produce much needed workforce housing. Why on earth would any sane person not take that offer? I don't know. I'd love for the judge to explain herself sometime, but right now I think she's just advocating for the construction of a tenement. It's unconscionable. So for me, I say we continue the fight, and hopefully other members on the dais will agree with that.
I'm just gonna ask this committee not to take that as a poll, as to giving a vote as to whether or not, because I think that would give legal strategy away as to how many committee members support or don't support going for an appeal at this point.
Sure. The paper mill. We've talked a lot about the paper mill over the last few months. I've made it quite clear that I think it is an irresponsible decision. Tonight, I heard some great ideas of how we should handle this. It was suggested that we should have a referendum. I fully support that. I think that is probably the best way to handle this, given that it is not a critical infrastructure project. It is not something critical for the functioning of the town. It's a vanity project, and it's not something we have to do. And if residents in the town want to do it, fine, let's have a referendum, let's let them vote for it. And then if that's what they vote for, then that's the will of the people. But I think it is irresponsible for members up here on the dais to make that decision for the residents. It's a sizable cost. So I absolutely think we should do a referendum, and I hope others will consider that. Let's see here. Oh. With regards to Ms. Sherman's comment about opening the door by proposing the alternative sites. One thing that I think the public needs to understand is, my understanding at least, of the fair share housing laws is that municipalities cannot be forced to give away land or spend money to produce affordable housing. That's actually in the law. Now, towns, in order to get more favorable terms in a settlement agreement, will sometimes offer to construct affordable housing or offer to convey land for the construction of affordable housing. That ultimately is a decision of the town based on a settlement agreement. My recommendation to our town is to learn from the mistakes of the past and never do that again. We should find another way to satisfy our affordable housing obligations, zoning changes, et cetera. So I think that it is disingenuous to say that proposing the alternative sites, which we proposed in good faith because we want to produce the affordable housing. We want to produce those workforce units. And we offered 2 pristine sites for that. But offering that up does not necessarily expose us in any way in the next round. So I just wanted to correct the record on that. It's a lot more I'd like to say, but as Mr. Cantor pointed out, we do have to hold some things close to the vest with regards to strategy and how we're gonna move forward. We also need to await the judge's final ruling, which we have yet to receive. So thank you all for coming out. I appreciate your remarks from both sides. Thanks.
Thank you. Committeewoman Pupus.
And Nick, can I add something? I want to add something. So Frank, 100% agree. Listen, people made the statement tonight on fair share housing and affordable housing in 9 Main Street that we shouldn't spend the money to pursue all of our ability to either change or improve, move the dump, whatever it is. A point I made, and I may not have made it in my initial comment, was we can't afford not to fight the dump. That's the comment. The stresses on reputation, are you kidding me? We're creating a income segregated tenement downtown Millburn. There's gonna be lifelong litigation tied to that site. Gene Pasternak discussed 9/11. We're gonna have that same issue. The stress to the school system, no one's mentioned that yet. That can be alleviated through proper planning. It really can, but we need to do that planning. We need to be doing sensible development. And then just to stress on the infrastructure. I think Mr. Cantor was talking to us today about coming down the Short Hills Road to here, and it was backed up forever. There's one ingress and egress to that site that's planned. You've got 75 cars coming in, usually 1.5 cars for the parking spaces. You've got a significant log jam there already. So my point is, we can't afford not to fight this project.
Mr. McDonald?
Just wanted to address Mr. Feld's comment about the parklets. At this point, there's only one interested restaurant in a parklet. And parklets are limited by number of spaces, distance to another parklet, you know, things like that, various approvals, insurance. And this is only authorizing the procedures and the for the use of parklets. But since that's on the consent agenda, I just wanted to address that. I think his other comment regarding the cell tower will be addressed when we go to that resolution on the agenda.
Mayor, I have no comments unless the committee wants me to address anything specifically. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Do you happen to know off the top of your head if what we spent on Stop and Shop litigation?
That over the time period was close to.
Thank you.
Not 25.
Not 25.
No,
Okay.
no, yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Not 25.
Thank you. And I also think the safe gun storage, maybe we could ask the police department if everyone's okay with it to push them.
Yep.
Okay, great. Okay, the Township Committee will now consider consent agenda resolutions. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to any items listed on the consent agenda? May I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-171 through Resolution 24-178, which are listed on the consent agenda?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purpose? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to Resolution 24-179?
Just like to note that Mr. Powell from TRC is here as our questions.
May I have a motion to approve Resolution 24-179? May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purpose? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to Resolution 24-180?
I have a quick comment. So this is something that I think is long overdue. Cell phone coverage in the Poet section of town and parts of Hartshorn has been abysmal, and in some cases, there's no coverage at all, and that creates a public safety issue. So I'm very glad that this committee is taking up this resolution. The one question I do have for Mr. McDonald, though, is do we know what the anticipated revenue will be in the third year? I believe that after the first 2 years, we get 50% of the revenue. Do we have any estimate at all of what that might be?
Yeah, so in our discussions with, we understand it's gonna be anywhere between 1 and 4 carriers on the cell tower. And it could be 50% of the revenue would be approximately 45,000 to 105,000. So depending on the number of carriers and their leases with those carriers, you know, we've Peter Lupo, myself have reviewed this for a while now, just to make sure that we understood all the terms and different things that were being asked in the bid. And to Deputy Mayor Sakamandy's point, the propagation of this cell tower does significantly improve the Poet section as well as Hartshorn. Obviously, the further away you get from the tower, the less propagation there is, but yes, the revenue would be anywhere between 45,000 and 105,000, and they do expect to pursue up to 4 carriers. The township will also have space on the tower should it be needed for backup emergency communications as well. The site may become a little bit bigger than anticipated based on what the needs of Diamond are in this in the construction of the cell tower. But this will be going at 137 JFK, the leaf compost site, and there is room there to expand that.
So I have a question. You mentioned those two, you said Poets and Hartshorn. So cell service pretty crappy in Glenwood as well.
Yeah.
So will this
No.
won't affect it, so what is the plan?
So what you're gonna see in those areas is more of, I think, the small cell technology. In fact, there are currently some Verizon is looking to do an application for, which may end up again in this whole land lease situation. And to Mr. Feld's point, we're approving the bid and we will enter into an ordinance for land lease of 137 JFK. But Verizon is pursuing one by the Short Hills train station, which is the small cell technology, which will help improve the cell service in Glenwood.
So, I mean, it sounds, what you're telling us, we're gonna be paid to improve service. That just seems like a no-brainer.
But and also, did we look at best practices on any health issues and related items as well? That we're using best technology, clear selling technology. I know there's some people in our community who are very focused on the health effects of cell phone towers.
Yeah, so I think your bidder here has made a commitment to come and speak about that if need be.
Okay.
Yeah.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-180?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-181? May I have a motion to approve 24-181? May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-182? May I have a motion to approve 24-182?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Are there any comments from the committee in regard to resolution 24-183? May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-183?
So moved.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. Copies of the audit in full are available in Town Hall upon request and have also been posted on our website. I would like to introduce our CEO, Matt Larcy, so he may provide a brief overview of the audit.
Thank you, Mayor. Our auditor, David Gannon, who is the head auditor for PKF O'Connor Davies, couldn't be here today. He's going to make himself available to come to a subsequent meeting if asked to, and he'll make himself available to any questions via email, phone call, Zoom. The audit was just completed. Today, you're just certifying that you received it and that you read the comments and recommendations. The audit is really split up into 4 sections. The first section is just the overview financials, the big picture financial statements. It's like the balance sheet, income statement, and some detailed schedules there. There's the notes to the financial statements that gets very detailed in terms of describing the accounting policies that we operate under. There's detail on debt, detail on our pension liabilities, and some other items in there. And then it's the supplementary schedules. All of the funds, the current fund, park and utility fund, capital fund, and trust fund have a variety of supplemental schedules. That's why it's a 130-page audit, because they do get very detailed. All those numbers tie into the balance sheets. And the last section is just covering the comments and recommendations. We had no formal recommendations, meaning it was a clean audit. It's a financial statement audit and a compliance audit. We operate under a lot of statutory compliances, some of which purchasing contradict each other because they're adopted by legislatures that are then changed later, and then some, so we have a variety of compliances that we operate under, but we didn't have any recommendations swaying from those. So if there's any questions that anybody has, I'll answer those. Feel free to review it in your own time, peruse it on the beach if you're going away in August. If you have any questions at any time on any of the financials, always reach out and I'm happy to talk through it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
May I have a motion to approve resolution 24-184?
So.
May I have a second? Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Purvis. Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy.
Yes.
Mr. Stoller.
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes. Committeeman Cohen, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2681-24.
Yes. I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2681-24, an ordinance to amend and supplement the revised general ordinance of the Township of Milburn, Chapter 4, General Licensing. The purpose of the following amendments to make necessary changes and safeguards to the township's canvassers, solicitors, transient merchants, and peddlers. These changes include increased fees for permits, increased time for staff to review and issue permits, the ability to perform appropriate background checks. The ordinance amendments will also decrease the time that an issued permit is valid from 1 year to 6 months. These changes will continue to allow the practice of canvassing and solicitation and improve the health, safety, and welfare of the township's residents. I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed on first reading, and that the township clerk be authorized to have the ordinance published in accordance with the law in the item and for hearing and final passage on Tuesday, August 13, 2024.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Coleman.
Yes.
Ms. Purvis. Yes. Deputy Mayor Sakamandy.
Yes.
Mr. Stoller.
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano.
Yes.
Thank you.
Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2682-24.
I would like to present an ordinance entitled ordinance number 2682-24. Ordinance authorizing the submission of a question for the election of a charter commission under the Faulkner Act, NJSA 40:698-1 in the 2025 general election. This is to put forth, as we've discussed, a committee to elect the 5 committees or people representing the districts to pursue a charter commission.
May I have a second?
Second.
I move
sorry.
I move that this ordinance be taken up and passed.
Yeah, please.
Discussion.
Oh.
I think, yeah, that's,
Okay.
before I ask for the second.
Okay.
So,
So I have some.
all right, go ahead, I'm
All
sorry.
right, I have
think we
a
went
few
too real
comments.
too
I
fast.
think that the ordinance is somewhat vague in certain parts, specifically the part where it says all other ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent herewith are hereby repealed to the extent of such inconsistency. I would like some specifics on what those ordinances actually are. Secondly, it says if any part of this ordinance shall be deemed invalid by an administrative agency or court of competent jurisdiction, such decision shall not affect the legality and enforceability of any other provision hereof. I'd like some information on what that means. That's also kind of clear as mud. And lastly, I think this is a 2025 issue. I don't think this is something, I think that this is something that could be done next year, early in the year, so that there's enough time to collect the signatures. But I don't think this is something that the 2024 Township Committee should be voting on for an election that will be held in 2025, especially since one of the members has chosen not to stand for re-election and will not be part of the 2025 Township Committee. And so for that reason, I move that we table this ordinance until next year.
Is there a second to that motion?
I just want to add that I don't think it's fair that we tie the hands of whoever's going to be sitting up here next year with a decision that's made this year. And I also had a question, we have, like, if this happens, and we have this chart, like, we don't know what the costs are gonna be. Like, the charter study needs funding to hire attorneys or consultants or whatever.
So there's a motion to table, is there a second?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'd like to, second table, please.
Is there any discussion on the motion to table?
Wait, I thought that we should answer those, get some answers to
Sure.
the question.
Sure, you want to have a discussion on the motion to table? This is the appropriate time.
Yes.
Sure.
Thank you.
So Mr. Cantor, I believe the questions with regards to the language about if any part of the ordinance is not found to be consistent, the rest of it stands. Isn't that something that's generally standard form we try to put in most of our ordinances?
Yes, the sections that were referenced by Committeeman Cohen are boilerplate provisions in any ordinance. I don't think they particularly have any applicability to this ordinance. I'm unaware of any provisions in the code or other ordinances that would conflict with this one. It's in the event that a part of the ordinance is deemed to be inconsistent, that anything else will be repealed, but I don't believe that there is probably.
I don't doubt what you're saying, but in the year and a half that I've been on the township committee and gone through, I can't count how many ordinances, I have never seen that language in any of them.
It's been in several, and I think since Mr. Cantor took over, we found that our ordinances are more complete, and he has the standard language that frankly we should have had in ordinances that are prior attorney.
I do think that my office did draft this ordinance.
Yeah, and I think before too, we just approved this in some of the zoning and land use initiatives that we passed literally a month and a half ago,
Yes.
2 months ago. That we had to almost the exact same language.
Yeah, no, it's best practice to have this language in your ordinances.
I have a question. If the voters vote no, why are we still asking them to pick a commission?
Because it still may pass, although one individual resident may vote no to establish a charter commission, they still have the right to vote on the commissioners if the overall town were to approve the charter commission. So you don't want people to say no to the commission and then not have the opportunity to vote for the commissioners, because it's possible they vote no, but the town votes yes.
And do we have any idea what the process is for those commissioners?
Yeah, it's NJSA 40:69A-3. Candidates for charter commission. They're required to have the lesser of 3% or 100 signatures. So in this case, I believe it's 100 signatures. Would be less than 3% of the population, but I'm not sure on that. And they have to file their petition 60 days prior to the election.
So there is ample time to even pass this ordinance in February, late second meeting January or first meeting February.
That's not the legal issue, but that's more of a governing body issue, but certainly it doesn't, right, it would not need to be passed tonight to go on the 2025 ballot.
Right.
I see no reason to delay it. I mean, look, it's a referendum. If people don't want it, they don't have to vote for it, right? Why would anyone want to go against giving people a choice? That's what democracy is all about.
And
let's give the people a voice, let's give them a choice.
And how are we gonna let the rest of the community know, what we're doing, why we're doing it? If they are interested, if other people wouldn't even know about commissioners or.
That's the beauty of doing it now. It gives us a full, more than a year to educate the entire community.
Who's us?
It gives those that want to run to be commissioners time to campaign and to educate the community. I would like to know if there is anything we can do as a government body in terms of putting out, factual information, maybe something on the website as to how the process works. Obviously, we need to be not take one side or another, right?
I think it's new to the administration too, so I don't know who would be, where would everyone get that information?
Well, their
That's my
towns have
question.
done this before, so I think there's probably, at the very least, we could put the statutes on the website, right?
I know a few towns, I know Red Bank recently went through a charter commission study and changed its form of government. I don't know any other municipalities, but I think there's been another one recently that also had a change of form of government. I think there's at least 2 within the last 3, 4, 5 years.
When there's a referendum in the school, they do a whole campaign about it and educate for many, many months. And I've seen it that members of the board are part of that campaign, and the administrator is part of that campaign. So I don't know why it would be done any other way differently than how the Board of Ed does their referendum.
The only thing I can say to that is that you're talking about their referendums are based on spending money on infrastructure projects. This is more of a, I mean, look, I'm not saying, because much like the referendum for the open space tax, that is being promoted and information is being given. I think that's sort of, but I have cautioned those involved that we need to not necessarily take a position, right?
Which is gonna be impossible here.
Right.
it's
I
gonna
think
be
that's a
impossible for
difficulty
people not to
in
take
this
the position.
particular thing, but it's just providing residents the information about it rather than saying you should vote this way or that way, or you should be in favor of an open space tax.
Well, when we talk about transparency, the Faulkner Act and this charter commission is to provide information and give recommendations based on the existence of what exists today. And looking back, I think the last time we had a study was done, how many years ago, Frank?
I think it was
Nineteen
back in the
seventy-two?
70s.
Yeah, 72 or so, I think the number was. So I think it's a dereliction of our duty not to do the charter study, not to look at the appropriate manner of how we're operating this Milburn Short Hills and press that forward. This does not say we're gonna change the system of government. This says we're gonna do a study and be advised, and that those commissioners are gonna be integral parts of it.
And I believe that once the commissioners conclude their study, if any recommendations they have then have to go to another referendum.
Right,
And the
my
residents
con-
have to accept it. So you really have multiple checks
You guys
here.
lose control of it. Once the commission's established, if they recommend a new form of government, it goes on the ballot.
Goes
Meaning,
on
once the
referendum.
TC approves this ordinance and provided it stands through the time in which it goes on the ballot next year, the TC then, the committee loses any control. The commission is then commissioned with choosing a form of government, whether say to maintain the same, but if they want to change, then that goes on the ballot based on their
And-
recommendation.
And my concern is that those commissioners are going to campaign and spread information and, pass out their, my concern is it's gonna be one-sided. That is my concern. And I don't see any other way to educate the people that are gonna ask you, well, what's wrong with our form of government now? Excuse me, but we're having a discussion. And this is, listen, this is all.
Question, can I just ask a procedural
Yeah,
question? to-
point of order, yes.
So, if we were to vote for it tonight and it passes, and then we start the work of educating the community about this referendum question that is potentially gonna be on the ballot on 2025, right? Because then next year, the committee could decide not to continue.
So, yes, it would be my legal opinion that until, and I don't know the actual date in which the referendum question would have to be, okay, so August, I'll defer to Madam Clerk. But I think up until the point that the township actually submits the question to the referendum, the governing body at that time could repeal this ordinance by
Right.
ordinance.
So procedurally, that makes it easier that if somebody comes in and they don't support it, and they can build consensus to have it pulled, they can pull it. Is
Right,
that correct?
but again, I think it would
Well,
not be logical to
politics aside, but I'm saying
Yeah.
that option will be there, and this gives
Sure.
a lead time of preparation to do it the correct way, to make sure everyone is informed, and that people can, give it the due consideration it deserves.
But again, my question is, who is going to do that? It's not, I don't feel it's the administration's responsibility to do that. I don't know whose responsibility
I
it
think
is.
it
We
is
don't
the
have to
administration's.
decide that tonight, right? We're deciding whether to do the referendum. or not.
Right, but in order to decide that, we have to ask these questions first. I think that there's still questions, so I'm just seconding, I'm seconding
And I also think
the
it
table.
reminds me.
And to have more
reminds me
discussions.
Well, we're voting on
when
the
you were,
table, right?
yeah, well,
Yeah.
it reminds me that, like, Tara, when you were elected, on Complete Streets, and we thought we had the majority, we were gonna fix it, and then they pulled the money away because they didn't wanna do it. I mean, it's a 2025 issue, it should be decided on by the 2025 Township Committee. And February, the second meeting in January, first meeting in February is ample time to do all of the work that needs to be done, should it pass.
Right, let's take a vote on that motion.
Well, allow the mayor to.
Okay, so we're gonna take,
Sorry, I wasn't trying to take it away.
so we're gonna take a vote to table ordinance 2682-24. So I'm seconding.
So you have a first and
A
second,
second.
discussion's closed.
discussions.
Yes, Madam Clerk.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Krupas?
No.
Deputy Mayor Sakamandy?
No.
Mr. Stoller?
Negative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Thank you.
The motion was not successful, so that there's no, it was not tabled.
Can I put a motion to?
So the motion, so the ordinance has already been moved.
Okay.
And there's a second. So there was a motion to introduce and hold a public hearing. So we could take discussion before the vote if you want, Mayor, unless we've already fully discussed it.
No, I have more to say.
Okay.
So I'm wondering in kind of the manner that we've done things, maybe two people on the committee right now wanna work to figure out as a subcommittee on this, kind of what the next steps are gonna be and how this is gonna be worked on this year.
Yeah, I think the decision we make whether to do it is separate from the formation of that subcommittee. I think we can vote on this tonight, and if it passes, move it forward, and then I think we should work to form a subcommittee and work with Jared and figure out, what exactly we can do as a governing body in terms of disseminating information. And I think that also gives people time in the community to start to, ask questions and learn about this. I also think that whoever wants to run to be a commissioner is, gonna make the case for why we should have this commission, right? So, I mean, that's, when you're dealing with anything political, it's the people that are running for that office that need to make the case to the voters as to why they should be voted for, why it should be voted for, and so they'll have the opportunity to do that.
So who speaks up to be opposed to it? You're not gonna run for commissioner to not do it.
Commissioners could absolutely run and have a position of, I plan on running and not changing anything, right? A commissioner is welcome to do that.
I don't think it's the commission, I think the commissioner doesn't go in with
I would hope
plan
not.
and they interact with the community to figure out what the community wants.
I would hope not.
So I don't think anyone's gonna run, I don't think that's like anyone's gonna run saying, oh, I'm running as a commissioner for the study, vote for me because I already know how this whole thing's gonna play out. That doesn't make any sense.
It's entirely possible, and what I'm saying is if there is concern.
I think it's more just the community, people in the community that are opposed to this are gonna speak up.
Sure, they won't vote for it.
Right, and then
Right.
there, some group of concerned residents will come up and they will take the opposition to vote no on the referendum.
I wanna say, as far as like educating the public, obviously it has to be in a position neutral fashion, but I do think that even if the ordinance were to be introduced tonight and passed and adopted on second reading, I think it's, given this wouldn't be into the general election of 2025, I think it's premature to start educating the public at this point for an election that's not taking place for a long time. I mean, that's,
Just confuse people.
yeah, I agree. But that's for you guys to decide. But my opinion would be, you would probably wanna start it after the primary. I mean, obviously you could put information out there that's position neutral.
But then if that's the case, I mean, I know my motion failed, but if you feel if that's the case, then why are we doing it tonight? What's the advantage of doing it tonight?
Why aren't we doing it for the 2024?
Because that wouldn't give adequate time for commissioners to collect 100 signatures and to really inform the community. A lot of people are away for the summer. And rushing it and having it fail means that we can't try it again for another 4 years. So we're better off doing it right. And I think that it would be political suicide for next year's TC to take a referendum away from the public. Because the only reason to take the referendum away from the public is because they would be so afraid that the public might go for it and want to re-examine our form of government. I just don't see.
And that's why you're doing it now.
Do that. We're absolutely doing it now because we have the votes to do it now.
And it's gotta be methodical and it has to be done in a practical manner. And listen, this is gonna make it whether we have two people running for TC coming up, it's gonna make that an issue as well. I mean, where do they stand? Are they for nonpartisan politics or do they want the divisive nature of partisan politics in our town?
You have that issue regardless, that all the more reason to have it next year because that would still be an issue in this year's campaign.
Well, I think we have three
And those
votes.
people-
I think we have three
Yeah,
votes
let's
to
just
get it done
vote.
now and to vote on it now, so. I think the discussion's over.
I have to,
No, but I mean,
I think,
see where you are.
I
have
think
the
we all
votes,
have,
like,
we have differing opinions, we should vote and the majority
Yeah.
is the majority.
Okay, so where were we?
So we have a first and a
Oh,
second,
we have a
Mayor,
second?
to introduce it, to hear it. I believe Committeeman Stoll introduced it and Committeewoman Cooper seconded it.
Okay,
And
so
we had a discussion and this is introduced and set a public hearing.
thank you, Mr. Cantor. May I have a roll call vote, please?
You said the public hearing date is.
Oh,
Well, I move that this ordinance be
Oh,
taken
sorry.
up and passed on first reading.
I thought we did that.
We did that already.
No, I didn't read that yet.
Oh, okay,
You
sorry.
haven't, has been moved yet?
He moved it. I don't think he mentioned.
The public hearing will be August 13th,
August 13th.
2024.
Sorry about that. Okay, so sorry, okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
No.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second Mandy?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
No.
The ordinance was introduced.
Where are we? Committeeman Stoller, you're scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2670-24.
Ordinance 2670-24. I would like to make a motion. Procedure adjournment. Okay, I would like to make a motion to adjourn the public hearing and consideration of adoption of ordinance 2670-24, titles of ordinance of the Township of Millburn, County of Essex, authorizing Township of Millburn to execute a memorandum of understanding with Paper Mill Playhouse, 420 Brookside Drive, Millburn, New Jersey, 07041, to the Tuesday, September 3rd, 2024 Millburn Township Committee meeting, at which time the public hearing is scheduled, seeing the township is waiting to obtain the ownership of the property. This hereby serves as notice of the change of public hearing date to September 3rd Township Committee meeting, and no additional notice will be published in a newspaper.
May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Purvis?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Second Mandy?
This vote is to adjourn. Correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Committeewoman Frupas, you are scheduled to sponsor ordinance 2678-24.
I present for consideration an ordinance entitled ordinance 2678-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with the law.
I declare the hearing open.
Jeffrey Feld, a one-time resident. I concur and echo what Mr. Cosgrove said a little while, and Mr. Cohn, about clarifying when the application materials can be provided to the public. And I think that we should clarify that, because I know I've had problems getting access to documents, not pursuant to Oprah, but going to the, let's say, the zoning or planning board secretary, and she denied to give me access. Thank you.
So how do we make that change?
Do we
Well,
get
we're
to?
gonna
We have
have-
to close the hearing first.
Oh, then we're
Mr.
allowed-
We can discuss.
Can we talk?
We have Mr. Peto's here, so,
Don't I?
yes.
I didn't close it.
Oh, okay, okay.
I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading.
May I have a second?
Second.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Township Committee, Graham Petto here this evening as Township Planner. So just to kind of touch on the idea of, access to the applications, having myself previously been a board secretary in another municipality as municipal planner as well. On filing, applications are available for public inspection. That is not subject to a completeness determination. If a member of the public comes in and wants to review an application form, that is possible. I think that this is really an administrative process that can be handled and not something that is germane necessarily to the language that's contained within the ordinance and the checklist documents. So that's something that can be handled in that way.
But I feel like this is a different conversation. Is this different from the conversation that took place at the planning board regarding notice requirements and when people are actually notified?
I guess, yes, I should take a step back because I am not aware of Mr. Cosgrove's. Mr. Cosgrove made reference to his comments that were submitted to you. I have not seen
It's not
those.
the notice, it's not, no one's saying that the notice should change, it's that if but people know that stuff is happening.
So it's not subject as a draft document.
Correct, right, yeah. But I will just mention, because I do think that this is important, while application forms aren't necessarily going to change the content of the application form, there are typically lots of iterations that happen to plans, in the pendency between filing an application and the final completeness determination. I've seen many cases where a developer comes in with a project that's 4 stories and oops, that's not gonna work, or that's not gonna pass muster, so we're gonna change that, now it's 3 stories. So I think it becomes incumbent upon whatever's posted online, or there's a process to kind of clarify with the public what is the latest and greatest, I'll say, and what is the true representation of what's going to move forward with the application. There can be a level of confusion that does happen. So I think just want to register that level of caution with some folks that that can happen.
So I totally agree with that, but I think it's outweighed by the fact that people will be getting 3 weeks notice to find out some major building is going on, that borders their property.
I agree with you, Michael. And if someone else on the dais agrees, then maybe we can make a modification so that we can increase the amount of transparency and make more information available.
Yeah, as I mentioned, so the checklist documents detail the submission requirements that the applicant is bound by, or what they are to provide administratively to the municipality for filing an application. It's an administrative matter. It's something that's handled administratively as far as how documents are posted or how they're shared out, when that posting happens, those types of things. So it's not something that would be germane to the ordinance, is what I'm saying.
Right, so if we wanted to make that change to how it's done administratively, that would be a separate action.
Asking Alex, so just us
Oh,
all
Alex
saying, hey,
needs to
Alex.
tell
I see.
Irene not to
Okay.
deny it.
Right, if somebody asks for a document, but is, okay. I mean, I think I can have further discussion, like when Frank said you both said on the planning board as well, right? And maybe have a better understanding of what you're looking for administratively in terms of how the information is distributed.
I'm happy to support that conversation as well.
Yes, Graham, I'd love to.
Thank you.
Thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Committeeman Stoller, you are scheduled to sponsor 2679-24.
Thank you. I present for consideration an ordinance entitled Ordinance 2679-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Tonight is the time for public hearing and final passage as advertised in accordance with law.
I declare the hearing open. I declare the hearing closed.
I move that this public hearing be closed and ordinance be adopted on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish the ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law.
May I have a second?
Second.
Anything to add, Mr. Petto, or, okay, roll call vote, please.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Abstain.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Okay, this is ordinance 2680-24. I present for consideration ordinance entitled Ordinance 2680-24, ordinance amending and supplementing the Township of Millburn Development Regulations and Zoning Ordinance. Should I just go on? All right. Ordinance 2680-24 was introduced by the Township Committee at our June 4th meeting. In order to provide more clarity, we would like to revise section 804-3H of the ordinance to include details on the statute cited. This is a non-substantive change to the ordinance. I would like to make a motion to amend ordinance 2680-24 as stated. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please, to approve the amendment.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Mr. Cohen?
Yes.
Ms. Lucas? Yes. Deputy Mayor Sacramento?
Yes.
Mr. Stoller?
Yes.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Tonight is the time set for public hearing and final passage as amended, as advertised in accordance with law. I declare the hearing open. I move that this public hearing be closed and the ordinance be adopted as amended on final reading, and that the township clerk be directed to publish ordinance by title as passed on final reading in accordance with law. May I have a second?
Second.
Roll call vote, please.
Mr. Collins?
Yes.
Ms. Krupas?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Sakamedi?
No.
Mr. Stoller?
Affirmative.
Mayor Romano?
Yes. Are we on to old business already? Wow. Ooh, rolling right along.
Yeah, so it was asked of me to put on the agenda not only I think by Committeewoman Prupas, but also by the Township's Forester regarding a bamboo and noxious weed ordinance. This is an ordinance that many municipalities already have. And we've provided the committee with some proposed draft of an ordinance for the curtailing of, certainly the prohibition of planting of bamboo, but also the ability to make those property owners that may already have existing plants responsible for the spread of those plants. And so we provided a draft ordinance. I don't know if there's any comments or questions or concerns or revisions that the committee would like to see. But it is my understanding that this is a pretty standard ordinance that a lot of municipalities have at this point in time and would be something that helps protect our residents from not only bamboo, but other noxious plants that tend to spread like wildfire in people's yards. So don't know if there's any discussion on this.
Yeah, I know that the EC has been working on language for a proposed bamboo ban. I think that, I don't know if it's next year or the year after, but there's some sort of period that's going to happen, and a lot of some of the more dangerous bamboo species are going to be able to multiply. Just like cicadas are dormant for a long time. I guess some species of bamboo have the same issue, and so it is very important that we do a bamboo ban in time, because once it starts to spread underneath the ground, it can affect people's foundations, pools, etc. My only ask would be to maybe, since the EC has been working on it, can we consult with them as to the language and do that quickly, and then we can move this forward? Of course. Just because I think they know a lot more about it than we do. I just want to make sure that whatever we have here is complete and includes everything it needs to include.
No, having dealt with this at my home, I agree, because it's more complicated than it looks. It really is.
I was gonna ask about the environmental commission, so I think we should do it.
Yeah, we can have that discussion with the EC and see if there's so hopefully be able to get it back quickly, but obviously pending their comment, their reviews. No problem.
I think just letting the EC know that there's support here.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Perfect.
We have no new business. So our public comment. This public comment period is to allow for final comments from the community. When invited to speak to offer your comments, please come to the lectern and clearly state your name and whether you are a Milburn resident and or property or business owner. Please do not provide your full address, seeing our meetings are recorded and readily available to the public. I remind you that in order to help facilitate an orderly meeting and permit all to be heard, speakers shall limit their comments to 1 3-minute session. I will now open public comment.
Jay Morielli, Township resident. I first want to thank the committee for agreeing to send out information on safe storage. We'll never know, but whether or not it saves a life, but I think it's imperative to do everything that we can. So thank you. More kudos that I didn't have time for, the pickleball courts. Kudos to those. Hopefully the weather holds up tomorrow. I am one of the lucky people that got picked to play. So weather permitting. Thank you to Alex for arranging a meeting with Jason Cohn, the tax assessor, who answered a ton of questions me and a neighbor had regarding how reassessments work and the process and property taxes, both on the residential and commercial side. Very educational. I learned a lot, so thank you, Alex, for that. Thursday night concert series, more kudos there. I was out last Thursday. It was fantastic. It's a great time to live in Milburn. I'll just leave it at that. Quick one on the street fixings. Altus Road would be nice to hear about. I am sure you are. To answer some of the mayor's questions regarding education of the public, I do think it's the township's the township should set up educational sessions with experts with a non-viewpoint to educate the public. I can recommend Mark Pfeiffer from Rutgers University, who Alex knows personally. I can recommend Michael Collins, who was the attorney in the Red Bank Charter Commission. Very knowledgeable. He could also answer your questions about cost. My understanding is that the whole process cost the township less than $50,000, but you know, do your own research on that. With regard to who would oppose it, groups will come up that say, we love our township form of government. We know it's 250 years old, but we still love it. And you'll have vote no for the referendum signs that go up. The same way you'll say vote yes. Groups will form naturally. Yes, commissioners that are interested in being on the committee will get up and will campaign, much like people campaign for township committee. It's a natural process. It's a regular process. Everything that Deputy Mayor Saccomandi said was spot on. So kudos on that. Finally, I just want to agree with Jean on the survivor note. Having been at 222 Broadway and having watched the towers come down, having watched the jumpers, having waded through ankle-high ash and walked to Midtown, where I stayed with a colleague because I was living in London at the time and couldn't get home, not seeing my family. I still struggle to think about it and talk about it, but I could not agree with Jean more on this. Thank you for the extra time.
Hi, Debbie Frank, Milburn resident. Just something on the Charter Commission. First of all, to Ms. Prupus, when the board goes out for a referendum, the board is the advocate because the board and the administration is asking for something in particular. I don't think that's what you have in mind here, and I don't have a position on this. I wrote about it actually when I first moved to town in 1980 and asked about it then. I do know, however, that it is not an uncomplicated procedure and it has ramifications on both ways, both sides. So my only thing is that I don't think that the committee should lead this. I like the idea of having somebody else because anybody who is going to be investigating this, and my assumption would be that the people that you would like to have commissioners are the people who will investigate pluses and minuses. How does it change? How does it affect this? And it's hard to know where that comes out. So I would say that you would need to have people who genuinely want to investigate the process, that it's not really the township. The township, I think, could guide it in terms of just helping to find experts. But this is not a position, this is not something that the committee, I don't think, should take a position on one way or another. You leave it to them, they investigate it, they present pluses and minuses to the community, and yes, they will have made up their mind during that. They will campaign how they campaign, but I think it needs to be in their hands. So that was one thing. The other thing is, I would be a little wary, I mean, about referenda here, referenda there. I think that there's a reason that whether under a, a different charter, under this charter, that you elect people to be on the township committee. And that is that the township committee itself makes some decisions. I do believe that in the case of the Paper Mill Playhouse, that is a decision that the committee made to do this, that decision rests in the committee, and frankly, that going out for a referendum is kind of ducking your responsibility to make decisions for the community. I think that's your job. Thank you.
Coming back. So I'm just gonna start in the middle of what I was talking about. And I just wanna, since I'm not allowed to talk about names, the person on the far left, and everybody from Mr. McDonald over, I'm not addressing, okay? I'm really disappointed that there's a lack of transparency and there's an aggressive approach as committee, Democratic committee in our township to block people intentionally from being elected into a position. With this person who ran in District 12, the fact that she put her house on the market in mid-April before the election, probably before I was even on the ballot, and then all of a sudden got on the ballot, knowingly purchasing a house in the Post section, selling their home, really is troubling. And the fact that I brought it to the attention of the Township Committee and the people on the Democratic Committee on the 521 meeting, and nothing was done about it, just makes it even worse. And so for me, well, Mr. Cantor, you're 100% right that it is not illegal to do that and then ask the person to step down, which I believe she has. I've had it confirmed. Is disturbing, and it's just an egregious use of power, and it doesn't make me trust certain people on this dais for anything that you say to me at face value, and it never will. So because you've broken my trust. So, and this person has broken my trust, and I really, really hope she doesn't run for office. And that's why there's a group of people that now are running under Democrats who love Milburn, because they're frustrated. And that's why people want to have a different form of government, okay? We don't want it to be party-centric. So I'm gonna talk about cell towers, which I probably should have talked about earlier. And I know I'm an outlier, but there are so many towns now in the state of New Jersey. Spring Lake is one of them. Point Pleasant is one of them. Belmar is another one. Belmar has enlisted, you might not like Bobby Kennedy, but he's a major attorney, especially in wireless technology. And they're actually litigating the whole county of Monmouth County, okay? So it's not like an outlying thing that like Crazy Christine's talking about. Other people in other towns are actually doing codes, and we're not. We've done nothing to do that. I know that there was a small cell tower that was just erected on the corner right near some type of substation, corner of Mohawk Road and Parsonage. And what's really disturbing about that is I really hope that the people that just bought that house right there, because the house was pending, know that it's there, because I would not buy a house that had a cell tower. A cell tower needs to be safely sited 15 to 1,600 feet away, which is a quarter to a third of a mile away from somebody's home to be safe. And people must give their informed consent. I'm almost done, Annette. People must give their informed consent to have radiation put on them, just like when you give informed consent to have cancer treatment. Thank you so much.
Good evening, Jeffrey Feld. I echo what Jean and my friend over here said. My wife was in the World Trade Center both times. And we've been advocating for about 3 years to amend that plaque. Also, we have a resident whose brother was in one of the planes. It's time to recognize that we all suffered on that day. And it wasn't just firemen. And it wasn't just people in that building. It was everyone suffered for their lives. I don't know where to begin now. 2.5 hours, we read a proclamation. We all said your commitment to open, transparent government, participation. But about 20 minutes ago, 2 of you opposed to have a discussion of changing the form of government. I'm still shocked that the township filed an objection for a determination that I'm an interested party in the fair share housing litigation. Mr. Hillner summarized arguments that I made in September 2021 for Judge Gardner, where your former municipal attorney in the case management conference began the case conference for attacking me, and Judge Gardner told him to shut up. At the fairness hearing, Attorney Buzek said, the only issue before the court is the interest of poor people. And I said to him, Judge, one of the issues you had to attack is whether the contract is valid. And I've been sending you various cases, whether you're in contract one, about duress, or we violated public policy. Today, there's a half-page ad in the Star Ledger regarding about releasing monies for projects. And they talk about two parts about notice to the public about what happens. That's been the whole problem. And if anyone in this community, who's the only one that really can talk on behalf of the residents? Who was in this building on July 30th, 2021, when you approved it? Who two people ran out of the building so they wouldn't be part of it, the hearing. Go back and look at the timesheets on that day. There was time spent till they approved it, then they come back after 2 hours meetings, they approve it. Then they were on the phone with Judge Gardner for 4 hours. Look at the time summaries. Something was smelled here. And I filed pleadings. And the question is, I'm still trying to figure out who authorized the objection. Because the objection, you want to keep the issues. I'm funding my litigation. Everyone talks about what it's costing the community. I'm going in my own pocket to do it. I'm doing you guys a favor. I'm doing this pro bono to save us. Who's the one that restored our right to speak that this township, the prior township committee removed without us? You violated our First Amendment. We're going to the United States Supreme Court, folks.
Hi, Jean Pasternak, resident. I just wanted to finish one point. Just the events of this week kind of brought it home for me a little bit about even locally, how these kinds of things where people, I have no, it's simply my own personal opinion, but when people leverage things that are under their power and control, like our judicial system or our law enforcement system, it can be very, very harrowing to a resident of the town. So I appreciate that Alex has stepped up and he's doing an investigation about the criminal complaint that was filed against me by the former mayor. We've had a good email exchange. I've given him some evidence to the contrary of what he described the policy should have been. I received a letter from the Milburn Municipal Court and a summons was contained in it. It was signed by the mayor on the date after the probable cause was determined. So something clearly was not quite right. So I really appreciate that perhaps an independent investigation be done, that nobody here that was involved look at this and understand why this happened and how this happened. Okay, thank you.
Anyone else before we go online?
Hi, Sarah Sherman, resident. To the subject of the Charter Study Commission, I did a little homework on the 1972 effort, and someone recently sent me actually the letter that the commission wrote where they determined they weren't going to change. From what I read in 72, what was attempted was a change to the council manager format, and it was presented as a cost-saving measure that would deliver greater efficiency. Nonpartisan elections were, as I understand it, ancillary. This was not the focus. Personally, I don't see the rush to getting started on this. I do agree with Mr. Morreale that it is neutral parties who need to explain to the public, not the TC, what this would look like if we made a change, because I think there are a lot of people who will not understand going in. I certainly don't know about it. What would be the role of the TC? What's the role of the business administrator or the staff at town hall? So I think it's very important for neutral parties to be involved, and I think that that's critical. The other thing that I would say is that I agree with Ms. Frank on this issue of, oh, let's have a referendum. That's like an oopsie, you know, oh, we voted on such and such, but oopsie, we changed our mind. So let's go have a referendum. And as I said earlier, I don't support the money we've given to the Paper Mill Playhouse, but I respect that a vote was taken and I would go along with it. I didn't love the settlement agreement, but whoopsie. Now, two people said oopsie. So I don't like that, you know, if this is a trend, I don't think it's a very productive one. But I look forward to seeing what happens with the Charter Study Commission and that it moves forward impartially and that it is not controlled by people with an agenda. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Perry Urso. I just wanted to complete my letter about History Matters. For the question and answer number 4 that was listed on the January 24th, 2022 under affordable housing on the website, the question was, why can't the township's affordable housing litigation be discussed publicly? Answer. The township has been repeatedly told by Judge Gardner and the court appointed special master that the settlement negotiations are confidential. So I respectfully stated the following comments and asked the question to the Judge Gardner during the January 28th, 2022 fairness hearing. Why can't the township's affordable housing litigation be discussed publicly? I further went on to say the township has repeatedly stated that they were told by you, Judge Gardner, and a court-appointed special master that all settlement negotiations are confidential. I then continued to ask if, does that sound like something that you would have told the township officials? On multiple occasions, Honorable Judge Gardner clearly stated on the record, I am certain that it can be found within the transcripts that he never directed the town not to disclose final settlement terms after consideration of official action. Have our prior administration misled and lied to us in the public? Perhaps this is something that would be able to assist in the matter of the this litigation that's going on and be assistant to try to rectify things. In closing, I leave you with that this is the opportunity to urge you opportunity to argue for the good of the town, simply based on the fact that the public was left in the dark and lied to. This will be your chance to shine bright and sleep at night, knowing that you have made the right decisions, knowing that you all couldn't consciously allow one individual to live on a contaminated piece of property, a piece of property which would sell for $1 to a developer, a project that would be a financial burden to the township with remediation, and not to mention any future lawsuits from residents residing on the prior DPW dump site. Sadly, all of this was done and more without any public input. I have included some enclosures with that letter, my letter to Judge Gardner, a screenshot of the question and answer, and also the updated question and answer link as of today, admitting the question and answer number 4 reference. Lastly, tonight you approved the bill list resolution 24-171. Please explain payment number, check number 4141 in the amount of $1,824.34 made payable to Schwenk, Price, Smith, and King for the professional services reference Della Russo versus the IRS. Thank you for your time and good night.
Thank you. Good evening. You're muted.
This is Alex Saltzman, resident. I'd like to thank the township committee members who voted for the study to be done for nonpartisan elections in 2025. I know it sounded like it's a long time away, but as a former school board member, when we have a referendum, a lot of time is given to educate the public. And I think even though it's 2025, I do think that it is having a lot more time is better to have less time, especially in a situation where a lot of explanation is going to be needed for the public. So I just wanted to say that I fully support that. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I will now close public comment. I just want to make a comment to Ms. Best. Since I was elected to this township committee, I've never given anyone a reason to not trust me. I've never lied or misled anyone. I will not comment up here as a member of the Democratic Committee. I am currently not the chair. And I just really took offense to you saying that you could never trust me again. So that just bothered me a little bit, but that's all I have. Does anybody else want to comment?
I would just like to point out one thing. We've heard this like a million times. We know that and for anybody who may be new, we know that Judge Gardner is not the one who told everybody that they had to remain quiet. It was Mr. Banish, the same Mr. Banish that just insisted that we do 9 Main Street rather than the alternative sites. We have a history with him. It goes as far back as that. Perhaps back then, our lawyer at the time should have challenged that. He didn't. You know, we can't. What can you say? Hindsight is 20/20. But he didn't challenge it. That's where that happened. So I don't know that that has a lot of bearing anymore. We know Judge Gardner didn't do that. It was Banish. That's that.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Mr. Cantor, I'm curious, I'd like an answer to Mr. Feld's question. I know you filed a motion, opposing Jeff's motion, Mr. Feld's motion. I just want to know, was that a decision you made on your own? Because I know I certainly wasn't consulted. I'm just wondering where that decision came from.
Mr. Feld made many disparaging remarks about the township in his papers. Additionally, the court, Mr. Feld was, I mean, I can get, if we want to discuss Mr. Feld's legal positions, they were wrong in just so many multiple ways. As far as who can intervene in a fair share housing action, the party that they can intervene is either a low and moderate income individual, a organization which represents low and moderate income individuals, which is Fair Share Housing Corporation, or a developer who is building. Mr. Feld is none of them. To allow his motion to go unopposed and allow the things he said about the township, I don't think would be in the best interest of the township. The township has come a long way in its fair share housing obligations pursuant to the settlement agreement. I thought there may have been a consultation, but I don't know who authorized me to do that.
Second, Mr. McDonald, I do think that Ms. Pasternak has a good idea here with regards to some sort of outside investigator to figure out exactly, what happened with that complaint and whether there's anything that was done improperly. That way we can get an independent opinion one way or the other. I have seen, the evidence that she was holding up. I don't know enough about it to make a determination, but I do think it's worthy of investigation. So, I don't know if that's something that a different county or I don't know who would do that investigation, but that might be something we should consider. Let's see here. Ms. Best, I hear your concerns about the cell towers. I've done a lot of research on this. You and I have talked about this. I will say those small cells that are going up, I believe they have about 1% of the radiation that a normal cell tower would. So if anything, if you're concerned about radiation, those small cells are probably a good thing because it means you might not need to have a larger tower. But you know, the FCC and the government sets regulations for radio frequency emissions. And I believe, you know, all of the cell phone carriers that build towers have to abide by those. You know, what we do here in town is no different. So, you know, I would trust the experts that have made the determination this is safe with their assessment there. I'd also note that they're now starting to beam 5G down from satellites. So, you know, it's sort of unescapable, and I think the public safety issues outweigh you know, the potential concerns that very few believe exist. Let's see. I think that's all I have.
I have no comments.
Sure. I certainly agree that there needs to be an investigation on the criminal complaint against Mrs. Pasternak. I mean, we live in a society where you have freedom of speech and you have certain civil liberties, and if those are being violated, hell, that can be a criminal activity to file a false complaint. Just as I said earlier, I think there should be an investigation of the prior TC and what induced them to go into that settlement agreement. I'll leave it at that. And that's as much as I want to touch on that. Jay Morelli, you know, and everyone else, including Jeff, you know, the smell that I cannot get out of my head anytime I think about to 9/11 is the smell of the ash. That smell will never, ever leave. And for people who are affected, we must, you know, take that step. Ms. Sherman, 52 years ago, I was born, 1972. That's the last time our government was inspected. I think it's certainly time to have a updated charter study. You know, it's a dereliction of duty of the day-to-day townships not to look at what's the best practice and where we need to be and such. In terms of referendums, I do agree, we can't have a referendum on every item. When we put concerned Milburn residents together, we went in front of the judge, and Mr. Feld knows this better than anybody. They said that, you know, the township committee is elected to make decisions on behalf of the township. They are put in place at the privilege of the residents to come here and make decisions. So that, to that point, she said, if you have a discrepancy, vote them out. And she was talking about the TC members, and that's exactly what we did to come to sit at this seat right now. So I think we would just go down a ugly path of referendum after referendum after referendum. So that's all I have. Wish everybody a good night.
I already said the piece.
Mr.
I just want to add one more thing to the deputy mayor. So, you know, Mr. Feld likes to come up and espouse what he believes is the law, and it's just.
Excuse me.
I just want him to talk to my face. Talk to my face. If he's gonna come here, talk to my face.
I'm standing right here, Mr. Feld.
All right, I'm with you.
What do you mean in your face? I'm sitting
No,
right here.
all you do is,
I'm sitting right here, Mr. Feld.
It's his turn to speak.
he had his turn, now you give me another.
No, I'd like to hear what Mr. Cantor has to say.
So he raises this issue regarding a fairness hearing. And as if the court's supposed to evaluate whether the agreement is fair to the township of Milburn. Fair share housing law is clear. The only thing the court considers is whether or not it's fair and reasonable to regions very low and moderate income households based on the need of the township, the amount of units given. That's the only thing the court evaluates. And then he keeps coming up and saying, I'm missing an issue and I'm not doing my job and I don't know what I'm doing. The law is clear, and the law is clear what a fairness hearing is to do. It's not to decide whether or not the residents of Milburn believe the agreement is fair. It's to determine whether or not the agreement is fair to very low and moderate income households. I'm not debating you. You had your turn. That's what a fairness hearing is. So to continue to get up and tell residents that you have a right because you don't believe the agreement is fair, to tell the court why you don't think it's fair. The court doesn't care why you don't think it's fair. Nobody thinks these agreements are fair. The court had a fairness hearing, Mr. Feld, and that argument just doesn't, it's not going to pass judicial muster. Thank you.
We'll find out go up to the health divisions and things.
I'd just like to get,
A third person to say, in terms of an independent investigation of this issue.
I'm your third person.
Motion to adjourn?